Hi, my name is Aajonus Vonderplanitz, and what I'm about to tell some of you people will be very new and very startling, and you may think I'm from another planet or crazy, one or the other. 30 years ago, I was dying of multiple myeloma, which is cancer of the blood and bone. Stomach cancer, started with stomach cancer. And I had angina pectoris, diabetes, psoriasis, all those ugly diseases. I started off as a very sickly child. I couldn't play with other children, so I never got into sports or exercise. I had a very violent brother who was very jealous when I was born because he was still in diapers and he never forgave me for taking mother's attention. And by the time I was 10 years old, I had developed peritonitis after my third polio vaccination, which is a perforated intestine. At that time, about 40% of those who were infected by it survived. I happen to, don't know why. By the time I reached 15, I had diabetes and angina pectoris. Angina pectoris was so bad, the muscles would spasm around my heart, and I would collapse and lay in the classroom for 20 minutes on the floor. They didn't know what to do, so they'd just leave me there. Also had two other problems that I was born with. I was borderline autistic. Did not even learn to communicate with other children until I was in my early teens, early to mid-teens. I had dyslexia so badly that if I looked at the printed page, it spun. I got vertigo and I would vomit or pass out. At that time, they didn't know what it was. They thought it was all in my mind, and too bad for you. If you don't learn to read, you're punished. So I still didn't read. They wouldn't let me hold the page down with my finger because that would actually stop the rotation. Didn't understand that. They said it would slow down my mind. Yes, that's what I needed. But they wouldn't let me do it. So I had to cheat my way through school. By the time I was 16, I had found somebody who finally loved me, so I got married at 16. Had a child at 17. He was born the first week of my senior year in high school. I was a very good cheat because I had to listen. And I had to cheat because I couldn't spell. So I would look over people's shoulders, and I became an excellent artist because I could copy the graphics. And that's what writing was to me, was graphics. By the time I got into college, it was good because a lot of the professors understood and gave me oral examinations. They said that I would never, ever be hired into a large company without being able to read, though. However, I was hired by Carte Blanche Corporation as a systems analyst. As long as you show intelligence, somebody will always take you under their wing to an extent and give you a chance. In that 3 months there, they gave me a project that they assumed would take a year and a half. Carte Blanche had been bought out by Avco Corporation. And they thought, well, these are two financial institutions. We will take all the collections and transfer them over to Avco. Why double it? You know, these systems analysts, which I was, say, let's cut out the extra expenses. Didn't work. So they had to transfer it all back, and that was my job. I did it in 3 months. Then they offered me a job that they had been working on for 6.5 years with the top salespeople, which is called the reinstatement department. I had organized and developed that all in 6 months. Hired new employees, made $300,000 for the company in the first 6 months. Now this was from somebody who was autistic and dyslexic, who didn't read until I was 22 years old. At 19 years old, I came down with a stomach ulcer. I went through the regular medical therapy, which is drinking Maalox, you know, that chalky stuff. I consumed anywhere from 2 to 6 bottles a week. Within 6 months, I developed a tumor around that ulcer. So they decided to commit surgery, remove the tumor, cut the vagus nerves to my stomach so I would never again secrete hydrochloric acid, never again digest properly, and stretch the duodenum, or vagotomy pyloroplasty. When I came out of that, it was miserable. Anything I ate, I broke out. Every day, my system got worse. I was already sickly. The incision became keloidal, which means it became tumorous. It got to be about this wide and deep all the way to my stomach, and was raised about a inch to a half inch off of my stomach. The air conditioning on here? I'm going to have to take off my clothes in a minute. You want to see that? That's all that's left. This little bitty thing. Thank you. That's nice. Anyway, it keloided, and they said, oh, we got to irradiate that, because if it grows, it could choke your stomach off your esophagus and you will die. So I underwent radiation therapy. My teeth nearly fell out. They were dangling. My gums bled. They turned purple. I got very sickly. Of course, radiation prevents cells from regenerating, so that means you don't heal. And they irradiated me all over my cavity here. I developed multiple myeloma, cancer of the blood and bone. And they said, oh, gee, now we have to poison you to death, but they didn't tell me it was poisoning. They said chemotherapy. They wouldn't use it by its correct name, poison. For every one cell, one cancer cell that chemotherapy destroys, it kills 1 billion healthy cells. That's like me killing everybody on the planet because I don't like sick people. Pretty barbaric, isn't it? Medical profession is ill, and they create illness. So by the time 3 months went by in chemotherapy, I was an invalid. To get to the bathroom, I would roll off the couch. I would roll across the floor. When I got to a doorway, I used my elbows to pull me through. Then I'd roll until I got to the bathroom, and then scoot in there again, and then climb up on the toilet. I was so chronically fatigued that if I stood up or even crawled on all fours, I would pass out. The diabetes didn't help. It made the sugar problem horrendous. So what did I do? I decided to die. I stopped medical therapy and said, get away from me. You have destroyed my life, even more than it was already destroyed. And no thank you. So a hospice, lovely people with volunteers that help you die as comfortably as possible, came over, and they really give assistance. They cleaned my house, they purchased food for me, sometimes they prepared food if I could even eat. Because usually if I got anything near my stomach after the surgery and after the chemo and radiation, I usually vomited everything. One of the volunteers brought a book about a woman who had cured herself of cancer by drinking a gallon of carrot juice a day. I thought, sure. Yeah, where's this person from? I had been raised in a very academic environment. My father was an inventor and scientist. He invented the first bearing computer when he was at Purdue in college. My mother was an RN. She has 7 brothers and sisters who are RNs. I have 3 uncles who are doctors. Well, only one still alive. I had no idea that nutrition had anything to do with health. Didn't have a clue. And I thought raw carrot juice, you've got to be out of your mind, got to be the worst tasting stuff in the world. Because all I'd ever eaten was cooked carrots, and they made me vomit. And I hated them. But after he persuaded me a little bit, I tried it. And it was tasty. And I thought, well, what do I have to lose? So I began drinking the carrot juice, and all of a sudden I could read. I said, wait a minute, what's happening here? My dyslexia is going away, the vertigo. So I continued drinking the carrot juice, and I continued reading. And I got full of myself, and I thought, I'm just getting better. I'm blessed. All my prayers are being answered. So I stopped drinking carrot juice, and the vertigo came back, and my dyslexia settled again. Drank the carrot juice again, it disappeared. I stopped drinking carrot juice, it returned. So it was obvious to me there was carrot juice. I said, why would carrot juice do that? It brought all kinds of questions to my mind. So I began studying nutrition. I got a tutor for 3.5 years who tutored me here in Los Angeles. I went to the colleges. I went to UCLA. I went to Santa Monica City College. I went to all those colleges trying to learn something about nutrition, and they didn't have a clue. Not a clue. And this was back in the, late 60s and early 70s. Not a clue. No matter where I went, nobody had a clue about nutrition. So I had to go to all these unusual places and learn, unusual books. And of course, I directed my interest toward raw foods because cooked foods didn't do the same for me. They didn't make me feel any better. So I concentrated on raw foods. By February of '72, I had a phenomenal experience with my girlfriend who had developed peritonitis, which is the same thing I had at 10 years old. Oh, and they had misdiagnosed that peritonitis as appendicitis. So they took my appendix out even though it was fine and in excellent health, just in case it caused me problems in the future. That's the medical thinking. Be prepared. Go by fear. Destroy. Just like a military thinking. Attack and destroy before. If there's any fear, get rid of whatever it is you're in fear of. So as I began experimenting, I decided that cooked foods were definitely out. Meat was definitely out. Because when I ate cooked meat, I had the worst experiences of any other food. Besides vomiting. Meat didn't make me vomit. Cooked carrots would, and peas and stuff like that. But the cooked meat would make my psoriasis unbearable. My face looked like raw hamburger. So I poo-pooed for a long, long time meat. So I was a raw food, fruitarian, vegetarian. This is great. I cleaned out. I got healthier. I got skinny. But I got healthier. I still could not get over all the damage done by the radiation, chemo, and surgery. So I thought, well, I'm going to live out with wild animals and find as primitive people as I could find to find out what they are doing, because I had read here and there or heard here and there that certain tribes had no degenerative diseases, and I was going to find them. I heard that animals who lived in the wild and did not have their food source damaged by anything or anyone had no degenerative diseases. I wanted to experience such a thing. So I took off on a bicycle, lived out of a sleeping bag for almost 3 years. I lived with coyotes, I lived with alligators, I lived with American Indians, I lived with Eskimos, I lived with a lot of different people. I had been told many times, let's say 3 times altogether if I can recount correctly, raw meat's the thing to eat. You want to heal quickly, raw meat. I said, no way, do you know how poisonous raw meat is? Are you insane? So at the end of 2.5 years of living outdoors, my multiple myeloma resurged. I was weak. My CFS was horrendous. I decided that I would go ahead and die. So I decided to fast to death. And we know how long it can take to fast to death. From around 60-some days. And I had already fasted. The longest fast I had ever done was 41. So I knew that I could go a long time without eating before I would die. And I'm not for fasting unless you're just not hungry and you're not anorexic. Because that fast took me about 2.5 years to recover to where I was before that fast. However, at this time, the multiple myeloma resurged. CFS is one of the bad side effects of multiple myeloma. And as I was fasting, a den of coyotes befriended me, and they brought me a rabbit. Ooh, now you're saying this guy is really spaced out. Let's leave the room, quiet. Let's go out of here. And I ate that raw rabbit, thinking, because of what my relatives had said, my medical relatives, never, ever, 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 ever eat a raw rabbit. I mean, a wild rabbit, cooked or otherwise. They contain bacteria that will kill a human painfully in 24 to 48 hours. And that came back to me at that point, and I said, 24 to 48 hours, that's pretty good. You know, I've been suffering most of my life, and I was almost 30 years old at this time. So I thought, that's pretty good. I'll take it. 24 to 48 hours and I'll be dead. So I sat down to eat the rabbit. Hadn't eaten meat in 6.5 years. It came right back up. Here it was, this little bunny rabbit. I was eating it raw. Bloody, warm, everything. And one of the reasons I became a vegetarian was not only because of the ill health that I thought it bred, and it does cook, but because I loved animals. I mean, I couldn't communicate with people, but I could communicate with animals in my autism. You know, animals I could communicate with. I played with snakes. I played with all kinds of animals, not humans. So I stopped. One reason I stopped eating meat was because of animals. But this one was going to help me die. So I psyched myself up. I sat down for 5 minutes and said, okay, wimp, let's eat this thing. Let's do it. Hold your breath, chew, rip, swallow. So I did. And I didn't chew much. I swallowed. The more I ate, the better tasting it got. I ate 3.5 pounds of that jackrabbit, and it was about 7 pounds. The coyotes shared the rest and left. I went back to my campsite to die, painfully. I laid down at my campsite, felt euphoric, and I thought, I am dying. I died 3 times before. I died twice on the operating table and once in a drug overdose. It was a recreational drug. It was supposed to be a fun trip. It wasn't quite. And I knew what leaving the body was like. It was euphoric. Why I ever came back? Still a question. So I was lying there with that meat in my tummy, that rabbit in my tummy, feeling euphoric and good, and know I was going to leave my body and never come back. Woke up the next morning and I was still in the same place. Felt pretty good till I stood up. Then I didn't feel good again, but still I felt better. 3 days went by, I didn't eat another thing, just had some water, and I still felt better than I had before I ate the rabbit. I thought, all this time, natives have been telling me to eat raw meat. So first thing I did was found a rattlesnake, and I popped his head off the way the Indians showed me, and I skinned it and ate it. It does not taste like chicken, it tastes like fish. Maybe cooked it tastes like chicken, but it tasted like fish. And it was pretty good. So I began killing birds, snakes, whatever I could. Then I went down to the farms and began shoveling goat manure so I could get goat milk, eggs, chickens, whatever I could. All of a sudden, I started putting on weight. In a matter of 3 months, I put on 30 pounds. I started eating tremendous amounts of fat where I could get raw cream. And I felt incredible. So I ran back to Los Angeles, bicycled back to Los Angeles to spread the great news. And you know what everybody said? You are out of your mind. Raw meat? What about the bacteria? What about the parasites? Your brain will melt. They will chew it up. So I had been raised around that, and I thought, oh my God, yes, I have to deal with that. And okay, I feel better. Nothing else has made me feel better. I will eat it until my brain melts. That was in 1976, September of 76. What year is this now? I think my brain is functioning, maybe not. I don't know, it doesn't seem to be a problem. What I found in my lab experiments with animals is that the body, when it cleans itself, will create a solvent. It will dissolve degenerative tissue, and that's just a long process. The byproduct of that is almost identical to turpentine, and it is as toxic. When a bacteria is utilized by the body, it takes half the time to break that degenerative tissue down, and it's less toxic. When a parasite does it in 5 times less time. However, it does it so quickly that if you don't eat raw meat, you'll never keep up with the regeneration that needs to occur, and you'll have ulcers and possibly die. So I found that parasites and bacteria are the best things you can have. When I did the experiments with animals, it was phenomenal. When I tried them with myself, I tried to introduce parasites into my body so it would happen quicker, so I could get well quickly. I ate pinworm-infested salmon. I ate everything you could imagine, and not one parasite would take in my body. Now, this is real unusual because the medical profession put me in the category of oxygenarians who are in danger of death, they say, like the Hollywood horror film. Death because you do not secrete any hydrochloric acid to destroy these parasites and bacteria as they enter the body. They will take over you and you will die miserably. I was waiting. I was hoping. Didn't get one parasite. Had my feces and blood checked for 10 weeks. Not one parasite would take. So I had to do it the long and hard way with bacteria and with the body's own solvent. So it took me a lot of years to recover. And how about that news article that came out on CNN 2 weeks ago that said, oh, gee, we're science and we're sorry. Do you know that salmonella eats away at tumors and reduces the size of tumors? But we have to genetically engineer to do that. That's bullshit. I've had 238 terminal cancer clients, 232 of them reversed because we eat raw meat, raw eggs, everything with salmonella, that can't occur in it. And I encourage them to let it get old. Because I know my lab experience showed that bacteria and parasites reverse disease. That is their job. They become active when you have degenerative tissue. Anything that rots will create worms. You can take a freshly slaughtered animal, put it in a hermetically sealed environment at body temperature, and you will spontaneously see worms develop. Why? Because that's a natural part of animal tissue. You are all full of worms, the seeds of worms. And when you die, you will decay, and they will eat you unless you embalm or put in some kind of oxygen deprivation tank where they cannot survive. That's a natural process. So to get rid of degenerative tissue, who do you call on? You call on the natural bacteria and parasites in your own body. It works 95% of the time in all cases. One disease that I have not been able to reverse in any case is Alzheimer's after the third and fourth stages. Or I shouldn't say I reverse, the diet reverse. Lots of raw meat, lots of fat. Lots of fat. Boy, you say, this guy's the upside down man. He's backwards. He doesn't know his butt from a hole in the ground, right? Well, take a look at the Eskimos. 80% of their caloric intake fat. This was 100 years ago. No degenerative disease. 99% of their diet was animal matter. And here, medical industry is telling you, stay away from stay away from meat. Stay away from those animal products. Those will get you. They'll get you good. You know why? They're back to the industry. Industry doesn't want to admit that all the chemicals, all the processing, everything they're doing is creating your problem. Isn't the animal meat? The Maasai tribe. What do they live on? raw meat, raw blood, and raw milk. They'll mix fresh, warm, raw milk with fresh, raw blood, equal portions, and drink it, and eat raw meat. Healthiest tribe documented in the world, no osteoporosis, no heart disease, no nothing. The intake is phenomenal. Eskimos had their first case of dental caries in 1886, I believe it was. No degenerative disease. Their first case of cancer was in 1934. We've all been fed a lot of hog law. Now, there's a lot of diets that work for some people. But what do you know what works for you? Well, take a look at your whole anatomical system. A lot of dentists will say, well, we don't have carnivore or saline type teeth, which are all ripped. They're for ripping. We have those grinders for chewing, grains and nuts and fruits. However, you look at all the tribes who lived on meat, when they started gathering, they developed osteoporosis. The more grains and nuts they ate, the more degenerative disease they got. The American Indians, the Costa excavation, the Icelandic excavation. All of them show that once they settled in, they developed osteoporosis. So carbohydrates, grains, nuts. The digestive tract in a human is 2.5 times shorter than any herbivore. The stomach of an herbivore is 2 to 4. We have 1. They have 60,000 times the enzymes to disassemble the cellulose molecule and get the protein and the fat from it. By the time the vegetation hits our sigmoid colon, we are just then beginning to fractionate that cellulose molecule to get the fat and the protein. All we're getting before that is vitamins and enzymes and minerals, which goes back in trying to make digestive enzymes to break down the cellulose. Doesn't happen. I've only met 8 people out of 1,800 vegetarians who did well as vegetarians, and all 8 of them were men. They all had one thing in common. They had 3 overactive glands. Usually they were the gonads, the adrenals, and the thyroid. For some reason, it created a very acidic bloodstream where red blood cells generated very easily without eating meats. Nobody else I've ever found does besides that type. So it sounds like the media that's telling all these stories told and formulated and theorized by the medical and scientific industry are all wrong. I eat 100 times what they say is healthy eating fat. Now, fat is great. It lubricates you. It'll stay supple. It'll stay fluid at body temperature unless you heat it over 104 degrees. Then what happens? It's just like clay. Clay is very malleable. Once you fire it, once you bisque it, even the lowest temperatures, it becomes brittle and will never again be shapeable. That's what happens to a fat molecule. And when it goes into your system, there's no more ion exchange. So in a period of 10 to 50, 60 years in the body, it hardens like a crystal, just like glass, just like if you fired clay at a very high temperature. No wonder people get a hardening of the arteries and cracked veins, split their brain cells, get aneurysms, because you're eating cooked fats that cannot exchange ions and are doomed to become brittle in your body. And if they've been a part of the elasticity or the lubrication within the cell, then the tissues get lesions. If they form a constituent of brain matter, then you're going to get clotting in there, and transmission will not occur, like an Alzheimer. Now, the Alzheimer's clients that I've had, their bodies will reverse. They'll get very young. The wives did not have to take care of those men any longer or any worse than the time that they went on the diet. Their bodies got young. In fact, younger than most people's get. One of them was 76 years old, and in a period of 5 years on the diet, he lived 7. On a period of 5 years on the diet, his body looked like a teenager's. His wife was astounded, so thrilled that he didn't get worse. His mind didn't get worse, but it did not improve either. Balding is another one that escapes me. You know? I mean, people have reversed their hair, but it's not something that happens, any more than, let's say, 60% of the time. So those are the only two that I have seen that don't normally and regularly regenerate somewhere around 85 to 90%. Now, I've written a book titled We Want to Live. It's 2 volumes in one book. The first is a story. It tells about when my son was in an automobile accident when he was 22 years old, damaged 1/5 of his brain. They said that nobody would ever live with that much brain damage. He came back, he's normal, he went to college, graduated, and he's fine. He tells a story of what I did, where I got to where I got, to be able to help him do that. No paralysis, no stuttering, no nothing. Perfectly healthy. Then the other volume of the book is Healthfully, and it tells the facts. What to eat, under what conditions. I cover about over 200 common diseases and thousands of raw food recipes that help reverse those conditions or ameliorate them. The publisher said that I should put it on sale today for $27. It's normally $29.95 plus tax, which is $32.42. If you come to booth 129, you can get a few copies. There are only like 7 left today. There'll be some more tomorrow if anybody wants to buy some tomorrow. So there's only 7 today, but in booth 129, or you can call 1-800-247-6553 and order it from the bookmasters, the distributor, and you can get it over the phone, but not for the price of $27. It'll be about $36 with shipping and handling. I'm going to take a few questions. Can somebody give me the time? Okay, so we have 10 minutes. Yes?
Do you recommend people only eat raw meat? What about, do you recommend vegetables as well? Or?
Well, no, I don't recommend vegetables because they're so difficult to digest. Vegetables are excellent for people who eat cooked food because they need a broom. They need to sweep some of that stuff through. They also need alkalinity to help balance the overacidity caused from eating cooked foods. If you eat cooked vegetables on a raw diet with raw meats and all raw foods, it over-alkalinizes. It makes it more difficult to digest the meats. So I don't recommend eating, after a while. Your body is always over-acidic if you've been eating cooked foods a while. And at first, if you eat a little bit of vegetation with it, it's not going to be harmful. Over a period of years, maybe 2 years, year and a half, you eat vegetables on a completely raw diet, it's going to create constipation. Have you ever heard of that? Vegetables cause constipation, even raw. Yes, they do. Yeah.
I like to work in a
Uh-huh.
Do you have an alternate that says you guys can breathe for long yet?
Well, she wants to know if there's another source for the raw milk besides Stuvie's. There is a dairy in Northern California called Claravale. It's illegal to ship it in because the LA Medical Milk Commission says that you cannot import milk into LA County unless it is a contiguous county. That means San Bernardino, San Diego. The milk has to be produced there, and Claravale is way up in Northern California, up near San Francisco. And they say it has to be certified. Now, the California law says that raw milk can be sold and made available as long as it meets grade A standards, which is not anything like the LA Milk Commission is forcing. Now, we're about to file a lawsuit on them and some other charges against the LA Milk Commission. I appeared before the Board of Supervisors last week telling them that the Milk Commission was operating illegally and that it should be disbanded and discharged because of Assembly Bill 2612, which was ratified last July 20th, which said that retailers, ready food, can be sold if it has raw eggs and raw meat in it, which again we're talking about E. coli and salmonella, as long as the person seeks it out and that there's a warning label on it. Raw milk is the standard. We declare available. But right now it is available at some of your Wild Oat stores and Santa Monica Co-Opportunity. Stuvie's is going to be back online in April. The problem the Stuvie's is having is that Altadena bottles for them. Altadena is owned by a French conglomerate. They don't give a darn about you. They are interested in profits. They went down so many times because Stuvie's could not produce the milk that they only allow Stuvie's product in their tanks 1-2 days a month. Stuvie's is working on developing their own creamery, so they should be back in operation and normal in April. Let's keep on it. Now, at the booth, 129, there is a letter to the Board of Supervisors that I wrote last night, which takes in all the Assembly Bill 2612, everything. Go down there and sign one of them, print it under your name, your address. I will turn it over to the Board of Supervisors. I will make a copy and send it to Gray Davis, the governor. Please go down and do that. We have got them running wild because I've already given them 712 letters already, and they are nuts. They have already come out with a public statement saying, we are not trying to ban the milk anymore. We just want to make it clean. And I say, don't make it clean. I want that salmonella. I don't want cancer. I want salmonella. Back off. Okay, yes.
I'd like you to tell again, if you would, the story of that caribou stew the Inuits fix once a year that you partook of.
Yeah, the Inuits, the Eskimos would take caribou and they beat it into a mince raw. They dry it out, dehydrate it like jerky, and then beat it into a mince. Then they roll it in raw whale or seal blubber with the hot sun, melt it, and then they bury it 6 inches under the ground and let it rot for about 6 weeks. And when it smells for a half a mile, it's ready. The E. coli content of that is enough to kill 5 herds of elephants, according to Science and Medicine. I didn't even get diarrhea from it. What happened was, I had been very, very cold my entire life. I mean, I could not stand Cincinnati, Ohio because of this cold weather, the snow. I was tortured by it, especially with bone problems. And that's probably one reason I so easily got multiple myeloma, blood and bones and blood. So it was torture. Cold was torture for me. When I ate that rotten caribou, I had body temperature that just made me comfortable, and I was in sub-zero weather. We were already getting into late summer there, and it's already on its way to really cold. And I didn't get cold once for the rest of that month. This lady up here is so energetic. You.
They would have to invite the state. But most of the time, the microphones are waiting around and down here because it's not a place.
I kept the microphone up here most of the... Really? Have I done that? No? I didn't think so. Maybe this hand has been. Well, Maddie. I think it's okay. Give it a... No, I don't have any other tapes other than what they do at these places. Yes? Yeah, maybe... The reason I don't eat fruit very often, maybe 2 a week in the winter, fall and winter, and maybe 1 a day in the summer, is because of my sugar problem. And I don't recommend it for any of my clients who have sugar problem, and I don't recommend it for women because they get more emotional. And I found that if you take them off the sugar, they don't get as emotional. Very calm. They don't even have PMS. Pardon? Like I said, no. Vegetable juice is where I get my vitamins and enzyme supplementation. If you get a bottle of vitamins, normally 82 to 92% of it is toxic. It is garbage that will chelate and clog your intestines and other tissues. So you can use maybe 2 to 12%. And for that it may balance in your system, the side effects over a long period of time degenerate the intestinal system and the glandular system. If you drink vegetable juices, you will get everything without any toxicity. Oh. I don't recommend anything. I don't recommend carrot juice in a high amounts. No more than 10% of a juice because of the high sugar. That can also create the same effects as fruit sugar, fructose. Someone here was asking? Well, you know, that's what I recommend, but I have a lot of clients who don't live where you can get organic, and they eat regular meat right out of Safeways and everything out of Safeways. They do wash it first. Yes? Yes. Well, I find good raw meats. I go to Wild Oats and get Coleman, or I go to Whole Foods and get the New Zealand. Okay. New Zealand beef is good. It's all grazed. It's not grain-fed, so it's less fatty, but it's real healthy tissue. So a combination of both is best. Yes?
I just wanted to give a testimony on your diet. And I installed Steve.
For about 10 years? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And my hair was falling out. And I had a lot of fruit allergies. I don't know what they told me. Almost every meal I would get stuff and down with blood clot out of it. And 3.5 years, I was like going through the 3 hours going away. My hair stopped falling out. And song was gone,
Pardon? He's raw meat, and raw milk, and lots of raw butter, and all that good stuff. He says he eats about 1 stick of raw butter a day and 1 to 1.5 pounds of raw meat a day. I eat, if I don't get raw cream, I may eat 2 sticks of butter a day, 1 to 3 pounds of meat a day. I have not exercised in 20 years as of this April. This is all just from eating meat. It usually takes about 2.5 years for a body to develop naturally after being on the raw meat. But I was always sick as a child. I never got into sports, never got into exercise. I'm not against it. It's just that I was never conditioned, never able to do it, never well enough. Now that I am, I don't care about it. You know? Yes? I'm 52 years old. Right. Okay. I've got a woman. Right. Well, maybe you could be better. I've got a woman, 76 years old, who came to me a year ago, chronic fatigue, having all kinds of problems. She's into it. She goes to every health food store and tells everybody because now she has this energy. Changed her whole life around.
Now the bottom line, I'm sorry, I think it's like...
Oh, bad, naughty. Good.
Okay, so the bottom line is that I love raw hamburger, but I still love it. Then I was afraid of my kitchen going to learn and start.
Right.
But I don't know if I don't test it. Like marketing, if I have been used to it, it's going to
Well, then you came in late. You're just going to have to get my book or get the tape. Get the tape. Get the tape. Get the tape. Don't bother these people with that. All right. My blood type is O. Okay, that doesn't make any difference. I have about probably 40 clients who are A. And they tried going off of meat, red meat, and do diadamos. They got very weak again. So diadamos might be appropriate on a cooked diet because the cooked proteins, because they develop the protein toxins and you have the lipid oxides involved, create an entirely different enzyme reaction. So all my A's eat even red meat and do very well with it. Yes? Uh-huh.
My daughter, who's now 40, every time she practices, we don't just strike that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, lots of eating meat with olive oil. Carpaccio, the Italian way. That'll help get rid of it. It usually people that have that kind of indication are taking a lot of aspirin. Is she an aspirin taker? Well, there are aspirins in some kind of things, that she may have been taking. Also, caffeine does that to some people. Somebody had a question over here about teeth. Well, ask this gentleman right here. Doesn't have any teeth and he eats the raw meat. No, the Eskimos never chew. He's saying raw meat is soft, not a problem to eat. Now, the Eskimos, they take these big chunks of caribou, 3 chews at the most, and they swallow it whole. Raw meat's not a problem. It's cooked meat. Take a look. If you have an animal, lots of animals eat bones, raw bones. They never get splinters in their throat. The animals who get that are from eating cooked bones. It's like clay. You fire it, it becomes glass. It no longer is porous. The hydrochloric acid cannot melt it, so it punctures and slits. When it's raw, it dissolves.
What temperature does it fat solidify?
Well, about 96 degrees, I say the fat shouldn't go over. 96 degrees outside of the human body. No, I don't take any of those. The only thing I take is vegetable juice. I haven't had my cholesterol checked since 84. We got to break this in 3 minutes. Haven't had my cholesterol checked since 84, but it was around 148 the last time. I have clients who come to me with high cholesterol, about 380, somewhere around there. Within 6 weeks, they're normal. However, I do have one Olympic gymnast. She's 24 years old. She has to maintain a 324 cholesterol level or she can't work out. When she did it on cooked foods, she would get ill all the time. She was constantly going into detoxification, which were flus or colds. Now that she's been on the raw diet, eating all the raw fats, getting her cholesterol, she can work out 10, 12 hours a day without getting fatigued. Well, I would have to say because fats do more than any other nutrient in the body. They lubricate, they cleanse, they stabilize, and it's the strongest fuel you can get. Pardon? Raw, unsalted butter. Yeah, we'll have that reaction. Fish and chicken are wonderful. Right now I'm on a chicken gag. I eat, maybe 4 chicken legs a day and just a little bit of beef. Yes, I get Rocky Jr. I like the Rocky Jr. because they feed it more corn and it's sweeter. Okay, that's it. I've got a workshop after this in room 5. I do personal things. I take a look at you and help you out on an individual level. Thank you very much. Bye. Hi, my name is Aajonus Vonderplanitz. For those who weren't in the last seminar, the lecture, and who haven't read my book, is there anybody here who hasn't done either? Okay, so we have 2 people. You did?
Sorry, interrupt just one more. Just let me just down a little farther.
Too close. All right.
Here we go.
Okay. You did hear part of the lecture?
Yeah, like the last 10 minutes.
Last 10 minutes, okay. Well, basically, usually in the workshops, I will go over a certain amount of that information. Probably some of you don't want to hear it again, but because that's usually part of it, I thought maybe we could skip it, but we can't because there's some people that are interested. I was a very sickly child. I had a lot of problems. I had dyslexia so badly that I could not look at the printed page without getting vertigo and getting sick. So I was not able to read. I was autistic to the point where I didn't learn to communicate with other children until I was in my early mid-teens. By the time I was 10, I developed peritonitis that was misdiagnosed as appendicitis. They found the appendix in wonderful condition, but decided to take it out anyway. in case it caused me problems in the future. By the time I was 15, I developed diabetes. Oh, and that peritonitis was in response to my third polio vaccine. It was a trauma. So anybody who thinks badly about vaccines, you should. They create a lot of problems.
Like the TV, you know, when you work at school system, you have to get tuberculosis.
No, you don't. Not in this state. All you can say is against your religion, and you don't have to do it.
They wouldn't hire me unless I did it at a mental health hospital. So
That's a different situation. Yeah, I mean, if you go through the law and take your 9th Amendment and the 14th Amendment, you can get around it.
okay. They would fire people if they wouldn't do it every year.
Yeah, well, if you did that, you could own the hospital. If you know the legal arguments, you could own the hospital. It's discrimination against your 14th. Yeah, no. It's better just get that scratch. TV scratch. Just get the scratch, put egg yolk on it, won't harm you. I have people do it all the time. Put the egg yolk on it immediately as soon as they walk out that door. They shoot it into the skin?
Like, like a little bubble thing.
Yeah.
They used to do the scratch. They don't do it.
They don't do it anymore. That's too bad. They do it somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe at your hospital they didn't. Yeah. Go to some other place else to get it. Yeah. But put egg yolk on it right away. Draw it out. Yeah. Not if it's a deep vaccine, it won't. You know, just eat tons of eggs, and what you have to do is eat moldy raspberries or moldy some kind of berries, like blackberries, boysenberries, raspberries.
I'm not allergic to mold.
Well, those molds you won't be allergic to. It's molds from cooked food people have allergies to, not molds to raw foods.
I've always intuitively felt there was some huge healing power in the mold you get in oranges.
Yes.
What do you know about that?
I found that it will help reverse tumors, also help eliminate radiation, the oils. And the molds help break down the oils for people who don't digest oils properly. The livers don't function properly. And the molds help break down the oils so that when you eat them, they're already pre-broken down. They're already fractionated.
And you can eat that stuff generously?
No, because then you get chronic fatigue. Your body can only handle a certain amount.
Like what, a couple teaspoons maybe?
Well, it depends upon the condition and the person. But I would say, you know, I have one client who ate them without, you know, thinking about it, ate the mold from corn every day for a 30-day period in their chronic fatigue that it existed for 15 years that finally got rid of, returned. So that's not a good thing. I recommend it when I recommend it. I've recommended it in my book for vaccinations, but people should only take it once every year and a half, and no more than a half a cup of moldy berries or moldy whatever food they are, working to reverse some problem. I think I'm going to have some butter, folks. Now, how many people have you seen just reach in and get butter? My food is now well lubed. I'm going to cut to the chase on it. By the time I was 15 and a half, I developed diabetes and angina pectoris. By the time I was 19, I developed an ulcer. With the medical treatment of Maalox, I developed a tumor next to it. They performed a vulgotomy pyloroplasty on me, severed the vagus nerve to the stomach so I would no longer secrete hydrochloric acid. Stretched the duodenum, cut the tumor out, and then basically just ruined my ability to digest anything. Then that became tumorous, the scar, the incision all the way to the stomach, all became tumorous. They irradiated that to prevent the cells from regenerating. That gave me blood and bone cancer. And then they said, whoop, now we have to give you chemotherapy, which is poison. And they gave me chemotherapy for 3 months. I was an invalid. I traveled around the house by rolling on the floor and crawling with my elbows because the chronic fatigue was so bad. And I decided that I would die. So I decided not to do anything about it. And one of the volunteers at the hospice introduced me to a book about by this woman. I think her name was Shelton, who had cured herself of uterine cancer by drinking a gallon of carrot juice a day. That sparked me into exploring and experimenting with raw foods. I thought that the carrot juice thing was, crazy, but it did reverse my dyslexia. And that encouraged me. When I'd stop drinking the carrot juice, my dyslexia would return. Then when I would eat it, it would go away. And 3 times that I knew that they were related. So then I explored raw foods after that mainly, and had a nutritionist tutor me for 3.5 years. Took me a long time to get to the raw meat because I went into raw fruitarian and vegetarianism for 6.5 years. Lived off of a bicycle for 2.5 years at that time, traveling all over trying to find natural remedies, living with animals, coyotes, alligators, chipmunks, wildcats, anything I could, lots of Indians, trying to find something that was maybe a secret out there in nature that man didn't know about, and living with different native tribes.
Very good money for all that time. Where did you get money?
I didn't need money. I ate off the land. I ate fruits and vegetables, and that's it, fruits and vegetables off the land. People, I had long hair and beard, and it was, because I lived outdoors, it was very golden. And, people fell on their knees and thought I was Jesus or something sometimes and would give me money. I didn't even ask for it, and they'd give me money. So, then I would stop at a health food store when somebody did that and I would get some raw cheese if they had it. Or I'd go to a store and get, 5 or 6 or 7 avocados, and I would just eat them all at one time. Living with the Indians, they told me about raw meat. I poo-pooed it because I was closed-minded about eating meats of any sort, both because I didn't want to kill animals and because I thought it was poison. And then when I was dying, I was introduced to eating meat again, a raw rabbit. I ate it. It made me feel better. I recovered. I started eating lots of wild things I would kill and eat, and it restored my health over a long period of time, but I knew I was getting better from that point on.
Can you say briefly what the fruitarian, vegetarian diet did for you after 6 years?
Well, it basically gave me osteoporosis, to start degenerating my bones again. It made my psoriasis unbearable. It made my diabetes unbearable.
But it was an improvement over where you were, right?
Yes, up to a point, but then it got worse, downhill with everything. And the multiple myeloma resurged, blood and bone cancer, so I was chronically fatigued again. So it took me to some place, and then when I got me as clean as it could get without rebuilding, regenerating, then it was downhill. And that's a problem with eating high carbohydrate diets, that you cannot contain and utilize the minerals because there's not enough fat. The fruit sugars burn it up. So then you have a mineral loss and bone degeneration. So here I am, 31 years after I was supposed to be dead. And thank you. And out of all the 7 incurable diseases, I have no symptoms of any of them. I certainly am not going to go to any doctor to have him poke and x-ray me and give me something. So I just trust that I have none of those diseases. No diabetes, no nothing. Of course, I don't eat any fruit to cause a diabetic reaction. Yeah.
I get headaches from fruit, but I can't take carrot juice, hardly any headaches. So I stay away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some people, well, I suggest that most people don't eat much fruit because I found it nothing but, bad all the way down the line. Yeah. Especially for moods, women in moods. Men in moods, too, same way. Yeah. Cuts way down on that moodiness. Way down. I have some clients, one chronic fatigue individual that she'd been chronic fatigued from the age of 16, I believe it was, until she came to me at 26, I think it was. Been on the diet about 2 years, very slow progress. Finally got her moved to a warm climate from Oregon, where it's always raining, and she's a person who's well affected by sunshine. So I got to move down to San Diego a couple of months ago. She's doing better, but she got in touch with somebody else who I work with occasionally, who thinks this of any carbohydrate, no matter if it's fruit or anything. He says it's poison. The Bible and the apple, that's the poisonous food. Fruit is the poisonous food. Fruit. And I thought it was a little crazy, but I'd start hearing stories that I hadn't heard before, getting to places where I hadn't heard before by doing such a thing. Fasting only on meat. Now, it isn't fasting, that's feasting. You don't eat anything but meat and water. And it's working in some situations. So I could no longer deny it. So then I started working with cutting out most fruit. And I find it works incredibly well in most situations. Carbohydrates, even carriages, keeping it way, way down.
If you balance fruit with some kind of protein like soaps or almonds or something, would that help? Or
no, it's very difficult to digest any of the proteins in nuts, because it takes a vegetarian animal to really break the protein down properly.
Even if you soak it?
Even if you soak it. Then it makes it even worse, because then it starts to react into a vegetable, because it starts to grow. And once you do that, there are enzymes which are prohibitive of certain digestive functions. Like, if that didn't react, all birds would eat all seed, and there would be nothing growing. They wouldn't go to insects or anything else. And there's an enzyme that occurs, and there are books about it now, there are enzymes that occur in sprouts, that there's an acid that prevents other foods from being digested properly. And you develop an allergy to these sprouts for that reason.
What sort of diet do you...
If you're going to eat fruit, and I tell everybody, if they're going to eat fruit, eat it with lots of fat. Raw and salted cheese, raw and salted butter, avocado, peanut oil that's pressed below 96 degrees Fahrenheit, raw cream, any of those things.
Many nutritionists tell you to eat fruit alone.
Well, those nutritionists basically come from a fruitarian vegetarian background. When you're a fruitarian vegetarian, you have very little protein. That means you will develop very few enzymes of an unusual nature. So the longer you're on that kind of a diet, the less you will be able to digest. So it gets to the point where you have to eat mono meals. I was there, I know. But once you start eating protein, all of a sudden you can mix just about anything. I don't recommend that people eat sweet fruits of any kind with red meat, because it mainly turns it into pyruvate, which is a protein sugar, and your body cannot use it for regeneration. And red meat is very important for regenerating the glandular tissue, especially liver. This workshop is about living disease-free, so I'm going to give you the clues. The body cleans out garbage with fats. It makes solvents, just like in the industry we make solvents with fats mainly. We put a little bit of alcohol in it, or a little bit of some kind of other thing to break down the fat to make it more soluble. The body does the same thing, about 8% alcohol. You can get 8% of alcohol from eating for a whole week all that you will need from one piece of fruit. So you don't need much.
I understand the 8% alcohol.
The body uses about 8% alcohol to make solvents.
Oh, okay.
8% of the whole body. About 12 to 15% protein and, almost 80% fat. In the fat utilization cycle, for energy, it's almost the exact same proportion. But fats are the primary substance for cleansing and for fuel. Also, they chelate, they bind, the body makes lipids and cholesterols to bind with toxins, to take them, break them down in the lymph system, then discard them into the bowels or out the skin.
Right, Stephen?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, you mentioned in the lecture how you eat 1 stick of butter a day?
No, that was Daniel. I eat 2 sticks a day. Unless I don't have if I have raw cream, I may drink 16 ounces of raw cream a day and eat no butter.
Well, my question is because, like, you know, I've gone to, like, a macrobiotic counselor, and I've done a lot of stuff.
I did macrobiotics for a year and a half.
Yeah. And my impression of a lot of, like, too much butter, meaning, you know, more like a stick or two a day, and cheese, is that it eventually will cause, like, ovarian cysts, you know, for women, that it just accumulates. It's too heavy and clogging.
There's no way it could do that unless you cook it.
Must be raw.
Okay.
It has to be raw.
Okay. I guess I'm thinking pasture butter.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about raw butter that stays soluble and stays malleable and stays fluid at body temperature. Once you heat it to pasteurization temperature, it no longer changes ions and it will dry out and harden in the body.
So it's raw butter. I thought raw butter just tastes like regular butter. So
It does.
Like it
It's firm, only it's accepted room body temperature. It melts.
adult easier.
Yeah. It melts. At 80 degrees, it'll get soft and melt.
By raw cheese or the same?
Raw and salted cheese.
So that's the difference.
Yeah, it tastes like it.
If you can't get
If you've been a macrobiotic for a while, you're going to have problems with any diet change.
No, I was doing that only the first time.
Oh, okay,
If
good.
you can't get raw butter, can you have olive oil? Or
Well, let me explain this to you. Your pressed oils, no matter what they are mainly solvents. They will break down toxicity in your body, degenerative tissue, scar tissue. They will break it down. They will not lubricate you and protect you and make you strong. There was a Russian general that wrote in World War II in his journal, as long as my men were able to eat the dairy, and it was only raw back then in World War I, as long as my men got dairy, their hair and skin stayed supple and brilliant, resilient. As soon as they had to resort to, he said as soon as we had to resort to olive oil and other pressed oils, their skin and hair dried out within 3 months. Those are great oils to clean out your system, but remember, they're remedial. They are medicines. They are not to be consumed too much at a time. Cod liver oil is an animal product. It's not a pressed oil. It's an extracted oil, but it's not a pressed oil. It's not from vegetation or a fruit. It's actually an animal fat, and it's wonderful. As long as you can you have to talk to the chemist whoever makes it. Make sure that they extract it at no higher than 82 degrees, and they cannot use a solvent to do it.
Do you know of a brand that's that way?
Pardon?
Do you know of a brand where they do it that way?
Not anymore. You have to call. I haven't investigated because I don't use supplements anymore. It's better just to go out and get the fish. Have the protein with the fat.
there's a doctor in Florence actually that does Dr. Marshall, Bob Marshall.
Bob Marshall? Okay. Do you have a number for him?
I don't have it handy, but I know it's available.
Okay. But I would still check into it. Talk to the chemist. Don't accept anybody's word except the chemist. When I ran a health food store from 1977-78, we had about 2,300 supplements on the shelf, 2,300 to 32. I tried to whittle them down as far as I could get them. Of course, the owner of the health food store was not happy because that's where he made his money, in the vitamin department. I talked with every chemist at every lab in this country and in all others where we imported and sold them. And this was an Antilles health food store. There were only 9 products out of all of those that were good.
Zero store on Melrose.
4 of those, well, there were 2 of them. There was Antilles, 2 at Western and Los Feliz, and then 1 at the Pacific Design Center. Now, they'll have 9 products. They only make 3 of them now, I think. Only make 3. Everything else is a chemical. Almost 99% of the vitamin E out there is a byproduct of Fuji and Kodak. They get the tocopherol, right? It's a molecule that is identical to vitamin E, only it's alpha tocopherol, not D-alpha tocopherol. So it's a chemical. And they're selling it as a vitamin. 99% of it. If it says D-alpha tocopherol, that means it's from soy or some other source. Wheat germ oil or something like that. and they use a solvent to get it out of there. And it causes headaches and degenerative thyroids and pineal glands.
Could that create low thyroid?
Yeah, absolutely.
May I ask?
Yep.
Where do you get the idea that it does this?
From observation, watching it in lab animals
Okay.
and people.
You have lab animals or things you work with this way? Or?
Yes, right. I paid over $1.5 million to have a lot of tests done in the last 15 years.
Is there any way that I can get some kind of copy of this?
No, you can't, because at the time that I was doing these, I was doing them underground, and you were supposed to have a doctor's supervision over it.
Yeah.
I went before the medical board on charges of practicing medicine without a license, although I had nothing to do with medicine, and they were going to use that evidence against me, so I don't let it out.
Yeah.
Nobody gets it. You know, you just have to take my word for it, and I got no reason to lie. What reason do I have to lie? You know, it's absurd. Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
when they say like organic vitamins, organic, like Dr. Schultz, organic mix of spirulina, chlorella.
Well, that's a food. That's a living organism, a living substance. That's a little different. Yeah. Now there's one company, I forgot what they're called. They take those same chemicals and they feed them to microorganisms and call them natural. You know, I don't know how they can get by with it, but that's the only one that I know that comes close to anything remotely really organically active.
Your chapter does.
Pardon?
Your chapter does that.
Your chapter? Yeah. Okay.
I can see if I can understand what you're saying so far on the basis of breaking it down into a protein, carbohydrates, fat basis. Now, fats, you say, provide fuel, purify, and lubricate. If I understand you correctly,
Strengthen.
and if I understand you correctly,
Protect you.
about carbohydrates, except for the enzymes you get from vegetable juices, they aren't too important.
Correct.
What about protein? What does that do?
Well, the protein is the only thing I've found that helps regenerate tissue and keep you young is raw proteins.
So it's a builder.
Yeah, it's a building block. Unless you mix it with certain foods, which then will be used as a pyruvate, which is a protein sugar. So it'll be used as fuel instead of a rebuilding block.
Like you said, there were problems for pyruvate and sugar.
There's no problem with pyruvate. It's just that you're going to get enough. You only need 15% pyruvate in the citric acid cycle of utilizing fat as fuel. Okay? 15% protein, which is a pyruvate, and you have 5 to 8% citric acid or carbohydrate.
I don't quite understand what you're describing there. I know it's a citric acid cycle, but where are you starting? With the intake of protein, 15% protein you put in your mouth?
No, that's in the breakdown. That's the cellular breakdown, cellular level.
Okay.
That's when it gets down to the cellular level. However, it works out to about the same proportion if you're looking at calorie-wise. The Eskimos ate 80% fat as their caloric intake. The rest was almost entirely protein. They rarely ate any vegetable matter, fruit matter, or grain matter, except in the summertime.
What do you think is a meat?
Pardon?
The minerals.
Fish. Lots of fish. Oh yeah, fish is concentrated in minerals.
What is a typical meal for you? Like, say it where it is.
That's jumping ahead.
Oh, excuse me.
Okay.
What about nuts and seeds?
Well, like I said, those are difficult to digest in the human body. If you want to eat some nuts, now if I crave a starch, I go for nuts. I will eat almonds or pecans because they're very soft and they're easier to break down. And I can utilize the starch in those better. And most people I found can. Walnuts, the almonds are a little bit more difficult, even if they're germinated because of the enzyme that's created.
You said almonds and pecans were soft. Could you give me another?
No, walnuts and pecans. Walnuts and pecans, yes, almonds are very hard. Walnuts and pecans. Those are nuts that I go to. Also, pine nuts, very good. Very expensive, $16 a pound.
Yeah, but aren't those exceptionally digestible, pine nuts?
Yes.
What cashews?
If you don't mind paying $16, $17 a pound. But cashews are irradiated. They have the hardest shell on the planet. They fire a laser beam into it, heats it on the inside, and explodes it open. It's irradiated.
All of them?
Yeah, that's why most people who eat them get indigestion. They can't digest it. It just sits in the stomach.
How about Brazil?
And they say raw, and it's a lie. Macadamia nuts are great. They may heat the outside up to 100 degrees, 110 degrees. The inside usually doesn't get over 105, and that's okay. If you can find, a local farm, because they do farm them up in, Santa Barbara. If you can find some local people who don't do that, it's even better. Most of those in Hawaii put them in kilns and dry them about 110 degrees.
Or if they're high in fat, is that a good fat? Is that a kind of fat that we can use?
You can utilize it to an extent. But as I said, it's a difficult fat to break down. Animal fats are, I find, the safest and the best to eat in large quantities without putting it on unproperly digested. And I encourage people, everybody that I've helped reverse a disease quickly have been those people who don't mind or swallow their vanity and get fat. And I'm talking about only maybe 15 to 20 pounds over their normal supposed weight. If they will do that, you will heal so much faster. If you don't, you will never be able to keep up with the body's needs. Yep, different wardrobe, all that stuff, but so what,
15, 20 pounds over what?
Over their normal chart weight, what they're supposed to be. No, what you do is you go on a cycle. That's what I'm getting into. You go on a cycle. You go up with that weight and you take it off in a 5-month cycle, 4 to 5 month cycle. So it takes you a few months to put it on. It takes you a few months to take it off. What happens is the body fills up with fats, takes that toxicity, dumps it out. It's like changing the oil in a car every 6 months. Only you do it every 5 months. Yes?
Can you give us an example of non-senior?
I suggest that people do it for the rest of their lives, but gain weight and lose weight. Yeah. Now I still do it, and I've been eating the raw meat since 1976.
Yeah.
Not on a daily basis until December of '82. So I do that still. I am right now 30 pounds over my chart weight.
You are?
30 pounds, yep. Most people, my size, 5'8", on the chart should be about 155 max. I go from 172 to 180. That's my normal weight. Because on the raw meat, the density of tissue is a lot heavier. So you're always going to be overweight anyway on this diet with raw meat. You're naturally going to have that. Now my fat content is about 27%. When I have these people who do the test, it's like, oh my God, I can help you. I can help you. And this is mainly chiropractors, freak out when they see a fat level that high. And they're not healthier than me, and they're telling me they're going to help me. Now this is the mindset that our science has basically put people into. The Eskimos did it. 80% of their caloric intake fat.
They do that because it's included. Protect them.
In the Andes, take a look at the Maasai tribe. Blood, meat, milk.
Okay.
That's all they eat. Blood, meat, milk. Well, up to 20 years ago. Now they eat the other crap that white man has brought in. But they had no degenerative disease, tremendous amounts of fat. And they're in a tropical place.
Are they heavy too? I guess.
No. No, the Eskimos were never heavy. They wore these coats with the fur on the inside that kept them warm, but they were never fat. They're all fat now because they're on a white man's diet. Yeah. Yes. No, your Aboriginals. I just located a book. Somebody sent it to me from New York that has books written in the 1700s regarding Aboriginals, but I haven't gotten to that chapter yet. So this is the first book that I've gotten actually before they were, really corrupted. So I don't know how much the Aborigines, from what I understand, mainly ate cooked meats. So they had degenerative diseases in a shorter life. Their life expectancy at the longest was 80 years old. You've heard stories about the Eskimos living 50 years old. However, Vladimir Stephenson, the anthropologist who was hired by United States government to study cancer among the Inuit and other Eskimo tribes and North American Indian tribes. What was your question again? I'm sorry, I'm going to have to eat something.
Know about the giant Aboriginal.
Oh. But I was going to go somewhere with that. Oh, the longevity. There was only one colony that was reported to have a lifespan of about 51 years old. He got reports, and he studied and wrote to the doctors and the missionaries and all of these other settlements of Eskimos, and they lived 105, 100 years old. Some of them died young, just like every other place who was eating white man's diet. But that's all that they could do statistics on at that time, because the British and Russians had come in there in the early 1800s and introduced cauldrons to cook with. So that was up to that point. But they say that the Eskimo, the propaganda is still out there. The Eskimo lives about to 51 years old, short life. That was only one colony that had that report. And science and medicine love to take the statistics and ride with them to serve their interests. Just like they're saying, you are living longer. No, you're not. They're taking those statistics from New York City, Chicago, Houston, Philadelphia, those cities that were cosmopolitan, lots of people, no refrigeration, no electricity, no transportation. So when they got their food, it was always rotten. They always overcooked everything because it was full of worms and everything else. The people who lived on the farms, 105, 110 years old. Sure, some people died younger. There were accidents on the farm. There were accidents with animals. There were miscarriages. There were, bad births because somebody didn't know how to birth properly, or they were eating too much cooked foods and didn't work. But there are lots of people who are living very old in farms. It was the cities that are taking the statistics and saying, you're living longer. We're making your lives better. Only refrigeration has done that, and transportation of fresher foods has extended the life in the cities. In the rural areas, no change. In fact, it's worse.
What do you attribute the longevity of like the Georgian Russians and the Vilcabambas in Ecuador and Hunzas? What do you attribute that to?
That's a good one. In 1973, January 73, the National Geographic came out with an article that showed the oldest living man alive, 168 years old, lived in Georgia, Russia. Another man was 148. His wife was 122. They had been together for 102 years. Can you imagine being married? And he had his arm around her, loved her, happy. Great. I thought, oh, I wish I could have that for 2 weeks. I finally have it, so now I've been enjoying it for a year and a half now. But, the longevity there, I don't know. Nobody has given me any material on what they ate for long periods of time. I do know that the Hunzas ate a lot of soured raw milk. That when they ate meat, they usually ate lamb or goat, and they ate mountain goat, and they usually ate it cooked. Really, I don't know. I haven't been able to discover those. This new book I have has some matter in it, so I will find out. But it has references and bibliography of books that you wouldn't imagine that I'd love to get my hands on. And I don't know if they're in existence in 17 and 1800.
What about soured milk, like yogurt?
Soured milk is what your body predigests milk by souring it. Nothing wrong with it. It doesn't putrefy unless you cook it. When you cook anything, it putrefies. When you just, the Eskimos let the meat rot. Other tribes let their meat rot. The Turks let their meat get gangrene before they eat it, because it's predigested. It's naturally, with its own bacteria, it predigests.
They eat it raw?
And they eat it raw. They used to eat it raw. They don't eat it raw as much anymore. Kibbe, isn't that raw lamb mixed with bulgur? Steak tartare, carpaccio. Every civilization had their raw meat specialty.
What about eating raw insects?
There are instinctos that do. Now, I met some people from Peru who lived in the jungles. That was their protein. Because in those concentrated tribes sometimes, they were over-hunted, the animals. So then they had to resort to insects. I mean, I had one girlfriend from Peru, up till 10 years old, lived in the jungle. And, you know, she just takes the worms off the, you know, the caterpillars off of the corn. And she goes for the worms and pops them. You know, down there in the Amazon, she said that they had worms this long and that big around, and those were specialty. Yeah. Pop them, you know, right down. I'm sorry, I haven't been able to do that. I've eaten, you know, red ants with dates, and that's all that I could do. And I didn't do that purposely. The ants got into my dates at a very hot time in the desert, and I was sitting here chewing. I said, these taste like caramel. These are really good. These are regular old manure dates. Why do they taste so good? And I'm chewing away, and all of a sudden I'm getting full, and I break it open, and all these red ants are, you know, crawling in. But at that time of the day, it was like 140 degrees. So the ants kind of just stay where they are. And I had taken them up into this old coyote den because it was cooler in the caves. But the dates were still hot. So the ants didn't know until I broke it open. So I made sure that I ate my dates at that time of the day for those red ants, because they were delicious, absolutely delicious.
Ate them again?
Oh yeah, every day that I was there. Never. That, I don't know, when they touch the fluid in your mouth, paralyzes them. Never bit me once. And I ate a lot of them.
Pork?
Pardon?
Eat pork?
Yeah, if I really crave it, but that's something I don't crave very much.
No.
Yeah. But you can get organic pork. You can go to a health food store and get organic pork.
And no trichinosis here?
Trichinosis is, again, something you naturally have in your body. If you've ever eaten pork in your whole life, cooked or raw, you have trichinosis bacteria in your body. It's just waiting for enough of the decay of that particular tissue to become active.
If you cook your stuff, you're pretty well dying the bacteria. If you're cooking at 300 degrees or whatever it is, I would assume by that time bacteria is dead on cooked pork.
It's dead for that period of time. But once the meat absorbs moisture and other fluids, it goes into degenerative tissue again, and then will create bacteria, even trichinosis. I've seen this over and over again. However, if you cook it at 700 degrees and make it leather, it will not. It will mold and degenerate after that. It will not create. That's the highest temperature that I found that I could not get a bacteria to, you know, well, any between 600 degrees and 700 degrees were the times that I've cooked meat and never found bacteria to reflourish. And it's leather at that point. Who's going to eat it at that point? So you get bacteria.
This isn't some pre-pasteur spontaneous generation you're talking about. This is just saying, I guess, that 212 degrees for 15 minutes really doesn't sterilize your meat. Or
it does temporarily.
Temporarily.
But once it is out there and starting to rot and decay again.
So you're saying that organisms really survive the heat in some sort of state? Well,
either that or they're introduced.
Introduced from where? You talked about it hermetically.
Well, that was one test that I did, but that was on a that was not cooking the meat first. The other tests that I did were not so as extreme as that.
So you're not sure where these where the organisms suddenly appear from?
Well, let's take let's say I go out and kill a goat, and he rots in the field. We have worms that will show up, we have vultures that will show up, and we have crows that will show up. The crows and the vultures are not indigenous to the tissue of that animal, but they will come and eat it. But do you blame the crows and the vultures for the dead carcass? No. That's why you can't blame the E. coli and the salmonella and the trichinosis for the dead carcass. They just feed on it. It is their job to degenerate tissue that is in degeneration.
But that's not my question. My question is, after you feed at 300 degrees for X minutes, where does any life appear from in it?
It could appear from extraneously.
Just extraneously.
Yeah, it could be introduced.
Like
yes.
fruit flies that just come out of nothing, kind of.
Well, fruit flies are, from what I understand of fruit flies, they spontaneously are part of fruit for some reason, because you can hermetically seal that and have the fruit contained in an isolation chamber and never ever exposed to any insects, and all of a sudden the fruit flies will appear.
Yeah, I know.
You know, so that to me is like the worms and the parasites. They are natural and indigenous to fruit tissue, like the parasites and bacteria are indigenous to animal tissue. But the crows and the vultures aren't, but they'll come and feed on animal tissue. Yes?
Why not salt? And any other spices?
Salt increases the sodium ions pretty heavily in the blood. And the body eats by the process of ion attraction. So let's say you have a potassium ion, maybe carrying a carbohydrate or a protein molecule. The cell opens up, attracts that ion that's carrying that nutrient, and gets to eat. If it's sodium ion, most of the time it's carrying water, H2O. If you eat salt, I don't care if it's sea salt, Celtic salt, whatever it might be, it causes clumping of the sodium ions. That creates such a magnetism outside the cell that often when the cell opens to get the H2O, instead of the molecules being drawn in, they will be ripped out of the cell and the cell can never eat again. So it'll shrivel up like a raisin and die. So I even learned that in high school from my biology teacher, and he showed us that 1 grain of salt can kill 2 million red blood cells by that clumping. And no matter what kind of salt it is.
Clumping.
This guy was way ahead of his time. This was back in the early 60s. Pardon?
I guess I just kind of flashed on something. Someone did a dark field thing on some blood cells of mine. They're all clumping together.
Clumping, yeah.
All the blood cells were all clumping together.
Uh-huh.
And I had no idea what that was about, or whether... I also had the feeling that just simply this guy was generating an electrical field, and that would clump cells that way.
That would happen too. But there are many things that can cause cells to clump. There are thousands of things. Depends upon what you ate, a couple hours before, or that day, or the day before. And even what fields you may have gotten into, electrical fields. It could be many different things. Those blood cell analyses, they change every moment. How can you base anything on it, something that's so changeable within moments? I don't know. I don't understand it.
Dates and raisins also are considered fruit.
Pardon?
Dates and raisins.
Dates and raisins, yes, they are fruits. However, because they're not high fluid, they digest slower. Pardon? Yeah. I eat them if I eat dates, and dates are a great brain food. And I mean, I had a lapse there a moment because my blood sugar got low, and if it doesn't kick back in, I would go eat a date and butter together. 2 dates, 3 dates and butter together, and then I won't eat any fruit for 3 or 4 days. And that'll be enough to carry me through.
How about figs?
Figs are great, but not fresh, dried. Fresh figs are good too. They have a tendency to alkalinize the blood more than any other fruit. That isn't so good in my state of, raw foods. So when I eat a fig, I don't eat many if they're fresh. I can eat more dried figs than I can fresh. Yes?
So raw eggs and unrefrigerated eggs with salmonella.
Do you know the Chinese have the century egg? They take eggs and they bury them raw, pull them out anywhere from 5 to 25 years later, and they have them either white with mold or black with mold, and you pay $100 an egg, and you eat those raw, and they strengthen your immune system. Eat them. Great. Rot your eggs. Get some bacteria. Get well. Quicker. Yes.
I've had the experience when I've gotten raw fertile eggs, and if I have one of them that's cracked from the store there,
right. They stink?
Well, it didn't stink. I got diarrhea on 3 occasions from, so I will not eat a cracked egg at this point. I say, hey, something's wrong here. This thing's getting bacteria or whatever it is.
Yeah, but that may be a good thing. That bacteria may be going in there and pulling something out of your intestine that's very good.
Well, the diarrhea didn't bother me too much. It was just 4 hours of, sitting on the can. Yeah. I didn't get sick. I didn't feel bad. I didn't have a bad experience.
Then I would say that you were expelling something from your intestines that needed to leave. Let me give you an example. It's in my book, in one of the appendix. There's a woman that had a daughter, 14 years old, had polio. And the doctors were crippling her more and more and more every day, giving her lots of antibiotics, lots of penicillin, lots of anything to destroy the poliomyelitis in the blood, because it was eating up the nervous system and paralysis was resulting. Now, the woman came to me and said, my daughter is getting worse. They say they're keeping the poliomyelitis level down and it looks encouraging, but my daughter is getting worse. They're going to come to the point where they have the old saying, we cured your daughter, but here's the bill, she's dead. Cured her of what? How's poliomyelitis the problem? Again, poliomyelitis exists in everybody's nervous system. That's just like syphilis. We all have syphilis. It's a known. You all have syphilis. You all have poliomyelitis. What makes it active? Degenerative tissue in those areas on which that particular bacteria will feed. So I said, well, let's take the other viewpoint. Let's jack the poliomyelitis up. Let's give her as full of bacteria as we can. Feed her the raw meat and see if it changes. Her daughter was up and walking around in 6 weeks. The higher the poliomyelitis was in the blood, the more she healed.
Like a natural vaccine, except.
It's not a vaccine. The bacteria goes in and eats up degenerative tissue so that you can get rid of it to regenerate new tissue so you'll have live cells instead of dead cells or sick and decaying cells.
So you think that polio went in, or it was active?
That's what the polio does. It goes in.
Trying to fight that bacteria.
No, the poliomyelitis is a virus. Okay, it goes and feeds on tissue, but only degenerative tissue, nerve tissue. And if it cuts something off to the brain, of course you're going to be paralyzed, but it'll be temporary, as long as you're eating raw meat. Or if you're a particular person who can't regenerate tissue from cooked meat, you won't have paralysis. It'll only be temporary. But if you attack the body, then in that degenerative tissue on which the poliomyelitis was feeding stays there and rots. You cut off the channel forever, and you have permanent paralysis.
So you say you put more polio in?
No, all you do is do nothing to stop it from growing.
Let it run its course?
Yeah, let it run its course. And that's why I believe you should let anything run its course.
So there's nothing to generate the tissue except fats and meat?
Fats do not regenerate tissue because in my experiments with people with cancer and all of the kinds of diseases, they did not get younger. They didn't show signs of getting stronger other than the cleansing that fats created. Only 60% of my clients with terminal cancers reversed on high-fat diets without the raw proteins. So that to me tells me that in a situation of cancer, fats are the predominant importance. When I added raw meats to it, 98% reversed.
So what's that crossing?
The raw fats, yeah. Well, what I've found is that in a case of cancer is nothing other than the body's inability to discard dead cells. I found in 90% of all the cases that I've looked at, it follows a breakdown of the liver. The liver, you're eating cooked foods and garbage fats with lots of lipid oxides. You tax the liver day after day, year after year. You're taxing the liver. Finally, the liver says, I got to take a break. And it's usually 13 to 18 months for that the liver may stop forming certain lipids to take care of dissolving toxic tissue, dead cells. So then the dead cells will just start collecting in the body. Well, where does it take them? If they get inundated all over in the tissues evenly, and what happens when that gets overloaded? Especially if you're eating a lot of cooked meat. If you're eating a lot of cooked meat, you're putting dead cells of another animal in there. Your body can't even take care of your own. How's it going to take care of a foreign animal's tissue cooked on top of it? So what happens? It builds tumors in the system. Some people do not go into reversal right away because we've got to regenerate the liver back to health to be able to make the lipids, to break down the dead cells, to eliminate them. But the concentration is on fats. And then you say, wait a minute, the fats are the problem the liver's having with it. It's cooked fats that are a problem. Eat a little pineapple with your fats, you'll digest it. Your liver will have a fine time with it and be good. And then over a period of maybe 6 to 10 months, it'll reverse, and then you'll stop building tumors.
Are you really saying that?
Yeah, I had a client, as I addressed in my book, had 63 tumors in her body when she came to me. She had a week to live according to the doctors. And she was maybe 4 days away when she knocked on my door from that time limit. And she was 35 years old at the time. She was as white as your coat, and she was just like this, shook. And the flesh hung. This was only 35 years old, and this woman's flesh hung like I'd seen people in their 80s, you know. And I told her that I couldn't help her. I'd never helped anybody in that condition before. Scared the hell out of me. And I said, I can't do it. And she said, but you've got to. I've got a 13-year-old boy. I've got a husband. I've got a life to live, you know. And I said, okay, you'll have to eat raw meat. She said, no, I'm a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian 14 years. I eat all the right things. I said, if you eat all the right things, what are you doing with 63 tumors? And she says, well, I follow all the right protein, you know. I don't mix these foods, and I eat the right things. And I said, wait a minute, if you're eating all the right, why are you here? Why do you have all this cancer? You know? Thought it was nerves, thought it was her religious, you know, cross to bear. Because she was into this Buddhist religion, you know, that said that the woman is the servant and serves the man. So she had all this guilt and thought that that was it. And I said, no. Your liver's broken down, you're eating shit food, and you need to eat right. But if you're not going to eat meat, there's no way I'm going to help you anyway. She would not eat dairy foods. She would not eat eggs. She would not eat anything. And I said, well, then I can't help you at all. She says, okay, I'll eat dairy, and I'll eat whatever else you say, but I won't eat meat and I won't eat eggs. That's no fish, no chicken, no fowl, no beef, no lamb, no nothing. I said, listen, you know, I'll help you if I can, but I don't think so. I don't think it's going to work. So I had her eat 2 coconuts a day. Now, she had been allergic to all foods when she came to me. She was even allergic to water when she came to me. She had been eating for 30 days only grapefruit juice. That was the only thing she could eat. And the day before she came to me, she became allergic to that and water. She was absolutely could not eat anything without hives that would just, these hives would just blister on her. It was horrible. I got the coconut out and avocado and some cheese and some nuts. And I sat her down and I said, eat these. She says, no, I'm allergic to all of those. I'll break out in hives, especially those I'll have a terrible time. I said, just try it. Just do it. Yeah, I can't help you if you don't, at least experiment and explore it. She ate for 3.5 hours without a bad reaction. She needed the fats, raw fats, so badly. It took her 11 years to dissolve 63 tumors. She had 60 in her liver, 30 in her spine, 6 in her uterus the size of her fist, and lots in her brain. All gone in 11 years. She is now a nutritionist, 53 years old, healthy as can be. Didn't have any medical therapy.
Does she eat raw meat now?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Eventually,
It took her...
after this.
It took her 1 year and 3 months, and when she ate it, it was a very interesting incident. All of a sudden, we were in Kansas at the time. I helped nurse her because she was so ill. I was just so fascinated, with the whole episode that I nursed her through it. And I had eaten a poison mushroom, so she helped nurse me to a certain extent, too. I ate a death cap mushroom, enough to kill 15 people my size. And it nearly killed me, literally. It took me about 11 years to recover from it. We were in Kansas, and all of a sudden she got this. I went to a Mennonite butcher. They grow everything organic. I got a brain, and I got some liver, and I got some beef, for me. And I got a huge, about a 7-pound filet mignon. And I'm eating away on the brain, and she decides that she wants, getting this craving, this taking her over, and I'm saying, okay, here, good, do it. She ate 3.5 pounds in 45 minutes.
A brain?
No, of the filet mignon. I'm not encouraging you to eat filet mignon. The hunter tribes think that filet mignon is dog food. No, but their folklore was that filet mignon creates weak tissue, so they always do it to the dogs. Right.
Because it's so tender.
Because it's so tender. So they go for the tough meats, brisket, round, chuck, all that stuff. That's the top meat. And in my experiments, because I was eating filet mignon, the brains and all that, and I had muscle tissue, but nothing like I have now, until I started eating muscle meat. And now, this is without having exercised in almost 20 years, be 20 years in April. And I keep solid muscle because I eat lots of muscle meat, mostly muscle meat.
Is that like muscle meat? Is that liver?
No, that's glandular. The muscle meat is, steak, chuck, all that stuff.
Primary.
Yeah, but those are more tender. You go for the tough stuff if you want, hard, solid tissue. So she ate 7 pounds. She ate that whole 7 pounds in 24 hours. Exactly 10 days later, she went into contractions like labor. Every time she had a contraction, blood shot out her uterus. I mean, I'm saying, let me take you to the hospital. She's saying, no way am I going to the hospital. She got very psychic at that time, and, whatever that meant at the time is she felt very intuitional. She said, I'm not going to go to the hospital. I perceive this will take 3 hours to go through this. Let me be. Just help me. Go get a bowl with a little bit of water in it and a towel. Ring it up. Put a piece of plastic under me. Put towels under me. Ring it up. So I followed her instructions, and I mopped up in 3 hours 3 quarts of blood. You know how many quarts people have in them? 4 to 5. I'm here just trying to keep my cool, thinking I'm going to jail at any minute when this woman dies. In the same house with her, because I didn't rush her to the hospital. I'd be negligent by anybody's standards. Sure enough, 3 hours to the minute, her contractions stopped. And then she says, I perceive you should take me into the bathroom, run a bath about 3 inches high, let me kneel in it. I said, whatever you want. So I ran a bath, carried her and put her in it. She got on her knees. All of a sudden, one more contraction. The blood spit and a squamous cell tumor shot right out of her uterus, right in the tub.
What it looked like?
It was about this long. About this long, Oh, yeah, I picked it up. I had a lab check it. She did that 8 times in 6 years. 8 times out the uterus. Her body probably got rid of 50% of her tumors by building them into the uterus and sending them out. Amazing. It was amazing. The body is phenomenal.
Did you say building them in?
Yeah, the body started dissolving tumors everywhere else in her body and depositing them in her uterus, building tumors there, and then she'd pass them out. Yeah. Yep.
I want to go back to 7.
And if she hadn't had that 7 pounds of meat, she couldn't have replaced that much blood loss. Her body just came over her. She had to do it, instincto. I don't know if I ever finished answering the insect thing. Some people do very well with insects. I have such a problem eating insects. If I were starving and had no meat, I might eat insects. I don't know. Okay, somebody else had a question?
Saying way back that the liver, when things get too toxic, sort of goes on strike, goes into a particular phase. Could you go into that a little more? And also, did I understand you to say that tumors really have the purpose of enclosing all these toxins so they don't destroy
dead cells, collecting dead cells?
Okay. Now, could you go again through what the liver does at that phase?
Well, it's just like you're exhausted, you're overworked. all of a sudden your body collapses because you're exhausted. You can't work another minute. And how long does it collapse? Days, hours? Well, the liver never stops working like the heart. It never stops working. So when it fatigues and goes down, the liver may go down anywhere from a month, which is 30 days, all the way up to 18 months I've seen them. Absolutely stop anything but basal lipid formation.
So it's rebuilding itself at this point.
It's working on getting rest and regenerating itself. And it's not taking care of extra, it's not taking care of hormonal, it's only taking care of prostaglandin activity.
So you need tumors to fill in for its function at that point.
No, it's just that the body uses lipids, certain kinds of fats, to dissolve dead cells to remove them from the system. And if the liver can't make those lipids, those solvents, to break down those dead cells, the dead cells collect.
So the tumors.
Whole. The tumors are the cell.
Oh, the tumors are
the dead cells. See, your cancer cell, there's only about, per 50 cells around, there's only one live cancer cell, and that's like a hermit. He's an aesthete. He doesn't have to eat. He can stay alive and stay in communication with the brain and the nervous system. A tumor that is malignant will dissolve. A tumor that is fibroid, that is non-malignant, will not dissolve easily. A malignant tumor, you can dissolve quickly. And I've seen them dissolve anywhere from 30 days to 10, 15 years. A fibroid tumor that's non-malignant is very difficult to dissolve and get rid of. So your cancer cells are your friends, not your enemy. The problem is getting your liver back in shape so they can get rid of the dead cells that are collecting in the body.
How do you do that?
You have to feed good raw fats to that liver.
Good raw.
Good raw fats.
What happened?
Yep, raw meat fat is the best. You get sirloin fat, you call the butcher and say, hey, when you trim all the fat out of the way today, put it in a plastic bag, I'm going to give it to my dog. Don't tell him you're the dog.
My question, what about telling your family and friends when you're eating this stuff? I don't know.
Hey, that's part of the social opprobrium you'll have to suffer.
Yeah, my family thinks I'm a nut. Well, my dad is a physician, best psychiatrist ever seen. Look, don't tell the rest of the family about this. Keep your mouth shut. Your brother thinks you're nuts. Your other brother thinks you're nuts. I'm not sure about you myself, but I know you're trying something. I don't think you're going to get doing this. Go ahead and give it a shot.
It was 25 years that I did the things that I did before my father said, I'm proud of you. You are incredible. You don't age, you get younger, and here you get older, and all I'm doing is more feeble. He says, I don't know how you do it, coming from where you've been. And it was just in the last 8 years that my father acknowledged that. Hey, you can't please people. You got to please you,
right.
Your own health. They're not living your life, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
People think I'm a nut, that's okay. I don't know whether I'm willing to try different things. And
right.
A lot of the things I've tried I've been disappointed in, but I'm willing to try them. I'm willing to talk to other people. And you sort of get this thing where you can talk to other people who are on your wavelength, so the other people, live them.
Yeah. Well, the best thing you could do is say, you mentioned the tribes Maasai, and you mentioned the Inuit, the Eskimos. Before white men came around, they had no degenerative diseases, and they lived on raw meat. They had no cauldrons to cook with before white men came around. They ate all raw meat. 99% of Eskimos' diet, raw meat. The Maasai, before the white man introduced toxic foods to them, ate nothing but animal matter. No vegetables at all, ever. No fruits at all, ever. Healthiest, strongest, most athletic people in the world. Now they're skinny and getting sick.
They weren't quite so skinny there at one point. Well,
no, they were tallest race, strongest race, fastest race. Now they aren't. So, and also let me give you a story. My father and mother retired to an island, Jekyll Island, Georgia. And on this island, all the group, the in group, had a party. Each couple would have a party for all the other couples on the island. There were only 8,000 residents, and 90% of those were workers at the hotels and the golf courses. It was a land of golf courses. And the few there couples, the well-to-do, had parties for others. So there was 1 or 2 parties a month thrown by these couples. I happened to be in town when my mother and father were throwing theirs, and my mother invited me to the ballroom for the banquet. And she said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, what are you serving?" She said, "Roast beef and filet of sole." I said, "I'll have the filet of sole raw." My father slammed on the brakes to the car, yelled at me, "You're not going to embarrass me with that. You're not going to do that to me." I said, "Dad, this is 1981. People eat sashimi. People eat sushi. It's okay. You're not doing it. You're not going to embarrass me." I said, "Dad, I don't care how it makes you feel. It's my body. I know what it feels good. I know what helps me. I'm not going to tell you what to eat if I invite you to my party. So please, let me have mine." So we ended up at the table, and I'm eating the raw fish, and my father's going, and their priest that they invited say, "Oh, you're having sashimi." And then, "Oh, you're having sushi." And it got around, and then my father just relaxed, You have to go through these things. It's part of people growing into you, into your new you. If you're thinking about exploring this particular avenue toward health, It's in a program that's out there, especially with the bacteria and the parasitic phobia out there, which has no basis whatsoever. It's an old theory. Yes?
Dad, I have about 5 questions, but can I test you 2?
Ask me one at a time, and I'm going to hop around.
Okay. What about my children?
It's great. I have children born on it. I have children. I've got a couple in Connecticut. They have a 1-year-old, and they have a 4-year-old. They're both girls. The 4-year-old has been brought up on soda pop and all the regular garbage, okay? The parents are now eating the raw meat, the raw milk, everything. They can get it there. It's legal to get the raw milk from a farmer. So they can go right to the farmer and get the raw milk and raw cream, which they do. They make all this available. The 4-year-old will drink the raw milk only. And it took her a few days to get there. The little 1-year-old, she'll go open the refrigerator, the first thing she gets goes for the raw meat. Wakes up in the morning and goes in the refrigerator and gets the raw meat. The child won't eat any cooked food. That 1-year-old instinctively will not eat any cooked food. If you put raw or cooked in front of her, she goes for the raw food. Mm-hmm. Some kids are just already, a little too corrupt, like the 4-year-old, to do it easily. But she'll eat lots of raw eggs blended with banana. The 4-year-old. She loves those. Yes?
Do you subscribe to the different metabolic chemistries of different blood types and what they will do well with and what they won't?
The Diadamo, I addressed that in the last one. Right. The Diadamo, I'll go ahead and address it again. The Diadamo method applies to cooked foods. You have different enzyme and toxic reactions from that, and there are enzymes which bar the digestibility for like type A for red meat. I have 40 clients that are type A, and any of them, we tried it. We experimented, and when they went off the red meat, they did not do well. Okay. So that may apply to cooked, but not to raw. Okay. I haven't applied it with raw, I mean cooked, so I don't know. I can't say that his system works at all, but it doesn't work with raw. Yes?
The diet you propose is much different than the diet Gerson therapy and Contreras and the others propose. What do you think about them, and what do you think about your kind of diet?
Well, Issels and Gerson have, a lot of people who've left the Gerson therapy and not improved, gone to my diet and gotten well. I say that Miss Gerson right now is in denial because of the last 17 people that I saw come out of the November cycle. One of them became my client, and she's still alive, and the other 17 of that group are all dead. Now, Max Gerson knew that the raw liver was an important factor. Raw glandular tissue reverses cancer quicker than anything that I've seen. It doesn't have to be liver, but liver is a great tissue to eat to reverse cancer because it's 80 to 90% fat, hormone active.
And Contreras?
Pardon?
Contreras?
Contreras.
Contreras is, I really don't know a lot about Contreras' stuff. From what I understand, it's mostly immunology. You know, it's a chemistry lab again, and I don't know any survivors that have come to me from that. He may do okay, but according to Hardin B. Jones' research, who was professor emeritus of, what was it? Berkeley, of medical physics and physiology of Berkeley. In the 70s, he says, after all my research with cancer, I found that the people diagnosed with cancer who refused any treatment, any of the 3 treatments that the medical profession utilized, lived an average of 12 and a half years. All of the people who were diagnosed with cancer and and had 1 or all 3 lived an average of 3 years. That means 76% of your life gone because of medical therapies. And they tell you they're going to extend your life. It's a lie, according to Hardin B. Jones. So if you extend the properties of that, you say that as long as you leave cancer alone, your odds of surviving are 76%. If you leave it alone. That goes along with my research, which shows wait till the liver kicks back in, it'll go away. Those people who don't recover are usually alcoholics or people who've been into excessive drugs and have destroyed their liver pretty much permanently.
If you've already, hurt it so badly that it could...
Yeah, it may not come back. Yeah, exactly. So all these people taking credit for people being alive because they haven't gone to medical therapy, that they came to the Gerson clinic or the Contreras clinic and say, we're still alive because of this therapy. I have to say, according to Hardin B. Jones, if you don't go to any of those therapies, your chances of living 12 and a half years are pretty good.
Well, these people may drop dead down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have a friend who he went to the Garrison, and he's made it 8 years, and he's at this point healthy as a horse.
Uh-huh.
But his comment to me, he says, well, it's still there somewhere, he says, and it still may get me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you might try some meat on some things.
Yeah.
I didn't particularly think about your thing, but I think a little more the vegetarian thing. So.
Right, yeah. Well, I waited, I waited a lot of years before I wrote the book and came out with it. I wanted to make sure that mine extended beyond the norm. The doctors say if you live 5 years beyond your cancer date, you're cured. Bullshit. According to Hardin B. Jones, you live beyond 12 and a half years, you're cured. Well, I'm 31 years beyond the time I was supposed to be dead. So I can say, I've done it pretty well. And I had just the multiple myeloma alone, which is blood and bone cancer, 0.01% ever survives survives 5 years. 0.01% survives up to 5 years. And here I am, 31 years. Yes.
I read that cancer tumors shrink in the presence of a fungus. Can you explain that?
Fungus helps dissolve tissue. Fungus is, again, a property that helps decompose stuff, and it doesn't go to necessarily healthy tissue.
Okay, so tumor cells, they're like degenerative tissue, and the fungus eats that. Is that?
Well, most tumors are made of dead cells, degenerative or not. A mold will make them degenerative, which means they can leave the body. Most dead cells become mummified, scar tissue, and they can't be broken down easily unless a mold is introduced or salmonella or some other bacteria that'll go in and cause it to dissolve and degenerate. But if you have a mummified cell, it is hard in there. There's not many things that will do it naturally. That's why I introduce molds. That's why I introduce bacteria, to make it quicker. Yes?
As far as the meat that you consume, can you just take a meat grinder and grind it all, or do you have to just take
If you like. I don't suggest a meat grinder because most of them are made out of pot lead. So take a Cuisinart or a food processor, slice it up, put it in there, and chop it up that way.
And what about, here's one more question, what kind of water do you drink? Do you drink like filtered water or?
I drink carbonated waters only, naturally carbonated, like Gerolsteiner, Perrier. The reason is that, like hydrogen peroxide, it will increase the oxygen level of the blood.
That gives you a headache. Why?
You must have a lot of salts that it could be pulling out. And the salts cause, as soon as the old salts are out of your system. But if you go to the book under headaches and follow the formula, put some little honey and a little lemon juice in there, and it usually will arrest the salts. Lime juice will do it too, and then that'll take away the headaches, usually within 10, 20 minutes.
Carbonated water, naturally carbonated.
Naturally carbonated, yes. Well, naturally carbonated means that in the well, there's a whole carbon dioxide area that's filled just above the water level. What they do is they run a pipe out for the water and a pipe out for the gas, the carbon, and they shoot them both together back into the bottle. If it's chemically done, they make a chemical reaction with sodium carbide or some other chemical form to cause it, and that causes headaches on its own without pulling salts out into your body, out from the body, causing the high blood pressure.
We don't have much time for that.
What time is it?
20.
Oh my God. Okay, let's go.
Where do you buy your meat?
Right now I'm buying mostly the New Zealand beef because it's graze-fed from Whole Foods.
Not frozen.
Not frozen, right. And I still buy Coleman at Wild Oats. Okay, let me go right down the line. Stand up here, let me see your hands. If somebody would like to write these things down for each other, it would be a good idea. Okay, relax your hands. Okay, your sex glands are very overactive. Your adrenal glands are very overactive. Your pancreas is overactive on one side and debilitated on another. You don't do well with sugars. I don't suggest you have more than one piece of fruit a day. This will be on tape, so all of you who want to get it, just buy the tape, and then you don't have to worry about writing it down. Most of your glands are overactive. It shows that you produce red blood cells. You produce red blood cells pretty well. You're a person who normally would do pretty well on a vegetarian diet. However, you have lots of glycotoxins stored in the body and formed in there, and they need to be gotten out. You need about, I'd say, 50% red meat for about 2 years. Lots of chicken, raw chicken. Rocky Jr. is probably the better. Do not eat the skin. It's been dipped in boiling water to get the feathers off. Please listen, because some of the stuff I say I'm not going to repeat again, because we don't have the time. You might need a little cooked starch. If you find you get temperamental or a little angry or a little impatient, it's because you have so many hormones dumping into your blood at one time, it's difficult for you to relax. So you might have a little bit of cooked starch, like a half a baked potato with a whole stick of raw and salted butter, or a good piece of meat with it. Right. And try to use soft nuts first, walnuts or the pecans, and if that doesn't work, in meats. If that doesn't work, then go for the half a baked potato with lots of butter. Suggest, like I said, 50% red meat, 50% white meat for a couple of years, and then lean more toward the white meat after that, and then fluctuate on your own instincts. Your liver, there's quite a bad condition in your liver. Right now you have lots of bacteria throughout the liver. Encourage that, but you want to give them lots of fat to help it out. So eat lots of meat fat. And if you have to call the butcher and say, put it aside for my dog, then go do it. Be very helpful. Your red blood cell count, like I say, is very, very good, but the red blood cells aren't transporting oxygen well. So I suggest that you drink about 1 cup of the sparkling water a day, and that'll help that. Again, limit fruits. Like I said, need as much raw milk as you like, and get most of your fruits from that. Juice, 60% celery, 20% parsley, 10% carrot, and 10% cucumber. And if the cucumber isn't organic, peel it. Okay?
Great. Thank you.
Next. Hi, Lynette. Okay. Your sex glands are also overactive, and so are your adrenals. Most of your other glands are underactive. Your parathyroid on the right side is overactive, so that helps balance for the low thyroid on both sides. The right thyroid is okay. It's just not very active, and there's an infection in it right now. The left side of your body, the circulation is very poor. Did you take birth control pills at all?
Yeah.
Or did you take anything to restrict circulation? Any hormones or anything?
Never, no hormones. Actually, take niacin to boost circulation.
The problem with niacin is that it's the byproduct of vitamin B3. It's nicotinic acid. It's not really B3. It's used B3. So it tells your body that you've had plenty of B3. So it gives you the niacin rush, but however, it degenerates the tissue that relies upon B3. So if you want to kick that back in, if you can get some non-chemically treated tobacco, chew on a little bit of it, and it'll help. But it has to be non-treated. No saltpeter, no nothing in it. Also cantaloupe, but cantaloupe will have another problem, a sugar problem. You almost have a system like a diabetic. So you have massive sugar problems.
I do.
So I would say, if you're going to eat a piece of fruit, it has to be with lots of fat, 3 times the fat to the amount of fruit that you eat. Okay? I suggest that you eat mainly red meat, about 75%, 25% white meat. You need lots of fish, too. Out of the white meat, the majority of it should be fish for about 3/4 of a year. And then after that, you can have more chicken. You need some pineapple because you're missing some enzymes in the liver. Pineapple will be helpful. So that's the fruit that you're going to eat whenever you're going to eat the fruit. Okay, and with lots of fat.
Pineapple.
Correct. Raw cream when you can get it. Try to have a lot of it. Okay, you need to gain about 15 pounds, and then you'll be stronger. It looks like you're going into massive chronic fatigue, so.
And that's what I was concerned about, liver and bones, because the joints are in trouble.
Well, your liver is not bad. Your liver's fine, it's just not getting what it needs. You've been fat deficient for so long, it is starving to death. It's not diseased, it's not deteriorating, it's just weak from not being fed what it needs. Okay? So that's not a problem. Now, I'm giving you what I can just from the glandular system. The eye can tell me, the iris can tell me whether you have drugs stored in the body, whether there's damaged tissue anywhere in the system, what's wrong there. I'm just doing the best I can from just the hands, which is part of this one. If you want a full consultation and you need extensive help, then I can help you better by doing a full consultation with that. So I'm just doing what I can for the glandular system here. The left side of your spine is very contracted. You need to do the plow on the opposite side, on the left side, to stretch that left side, because it's causing circulation to really be blocked here. Okay? You're welcome. Okay, next. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, overactive. So everybody here has overactive sex glands. We've got a lot of sex maniacs here. I like that, because I'm one too. The adrenal glands are very low. Does diabetes run in your family?
Yeah, on my mom's side.
Okay, well, it's in you too. You don't handle sugars very well at all, so I recommend that you have, fruits maybe once a day for a while and make sure they're with something to slow it down, some fats. Do not have grapes. Pineapple's good for a while. Watermelon's very good, but not a lot at one time. If you're going to eat it in small portions throughout the day. If you have a piece of watermelon that's, say, this size, break it up into about 4 pieces.
Okay.
I know that you're going to crave the fruits like crazy, but if you start eating the meats, that'll balance. Your body will start relying on the protein instead of the fruit sugars. It'll go for pyruvate, and that'll throw you back in line. Right now, you have the symptoms of a lot of people who get gangrene and lose limbs as they get very old. That kind of diabetes, that's severe, because your tissues are very weak and susceptible to molds. So the raw fats and the raw meats will strengthen that. Okay. There's an anemia that is set into your system. The red blood cell count is on the low side, but the red blood cells are very, very weak. So predominantly you do red meat.
Okay.
For this isn't these things that I'm saying does not apply to you, because these things I'm catching for her. But when I explain certain things, I want you to pay attention. Like there's some things about mixing and.
Like what was wrong with grapes, but watermelon, pineapple's okay?
Pardon?
Why?
Grapes, they'll go into your system too fast, and your insulin doesn't produce properly anyway. I mean, your pancreas doesn't produce a good quality insulin. It didn't work that fast to catch the fruit sugar in the grape. It'll turn into a glycotoxin, advanced glycation end product, and start melting your tissue.
But watermelon is okay?
Watermelon won't do that. But like I say, eat a small amount at a time with some kind of fat. Okay. Cheese, raw cream, raw milk, avocado, coconut. Coconut would be a very good thing for you. Okay. You can juice coconut and get the cream. There's a part of my book that tells you how to get the coconut cream out of the meat by juicing it. In a Champion or a Green Power, one of those, an Angel juicer. I suggest that you eat anywhere from 3/4 to 1 1/4 pound of meat a day. Work up to that. Even if it takes you a year and 7 months or something like that. Just work at it.
The muscle
You've got time.
tissue or the glandular tissue?
Use both. Yeah.
All of it. Anything from the cow?
Anything from the cow or a sheep.
Okay.
Yeah, fine. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. What time is it?
42.
Okay, nobody's coming in here after, so they're going to keep the show open until 7 o'clock. So don't panic, people, please. Is there anybody who has to leave at 6 o'clock? Okay, just keep me informed. If you see it's getting within, 15 minutes of that time, let me know. Okay. Your pancreas is very active on the right side of it. On the left side, it's pretty degenerative. It's probably a total of 40% active. So you're not doing so well with sugars, and that includes cooked carbohydrates. You need to stay within cooked starches. My recommendation.
Mm-hmm. You should then.
Anybody who has all those overactive sex glands, if you don't have a partner, enjoy yourself. Because those hormones that build up can create a hormone that makes you irritable and anxious. If you release them with orgasm, they turn into endorphins and help you relax and feel better. Ellis, what was his name? Dr. Ellis, way back in the 60s, discovered that in his chemistry labs, That's why he said masturbate, masturbate, masturbate. Get rid of most of depression in the world. I didn't believe him then, but I believe him now. Okay, all of your glands are overactive from here up. So you're very mentally acute. you probably are anal retentive because of that.
Okay.
It means always have to reason everything, always have to find explanations.
Sure.
Relax, go out and enjoy some nature. Okay? The rest of your body part is kind of, you separate the two. You've got to integrate your mind and your sensuality. You've got them in conflict. Your red blood cell count is pretty good. And I wouldn't say incredibly healthy because your glands are overactive, and they're not overactive because they're healthy overactive. You've got a lot of fat storage in there, and if they don't keep active, they're going to solidify and develop. It looks like conditions that I see developed sclerosis, multiple sclerosis. So eat lots of fat. You also need the enzymes in kiwis and pineapple. Eat those with fat, especially raw cream. Helps soothe those tissues, get the toxic fat out. You need to eat, I would suggest that you eat a cup of olive oil a week, a half to a whole cup of olive oil a week with red meat to help clean out those glands. Okay? You also need the other fats to help you. Now, if you really want to get well fast and reverse where you're going toward, you need to gain, even that you're slightly overweight now, you need to gain another 15 pounds. Not happy for you aesthetically, maybe, but screw aesthetics when you're healthy, okay? And it probably for about 3.5 years you'll need to do that, okay?
By eating?
And then it'll start coming off. Unless did you have a cesarean?
No.
Okay, then it's fine. Okay, in probably 3.5 years, you won't have to do that. Like I did say cycle, 5-month cycle. Put it on 2.5 months, take it off in 2.5 months. One way to take it off is eat eggs, 2 eggs, 1 or 2 eggs blended with 5 ounces of vegetable juice. Vegetable juice should be 80% celery, 20% parsley. 1 or 2 eggs, depending upon if you're male or female or a large person. If you're a small person, 1 egg. You want to lose more weight, 1 egg. Next day, only meat and water. Much meat as you like. And you'll take it off with a sound mind and a sound body. You need to put a hot water bottle on your tummy at night. Not too hot, but you've got a lot of congestion in there and the circulation's poor in your intestines, and that'll help put it back together. Watermelon's also good for you in the summer. Okay?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, another person with very overactive sex glands and adrenals. Pancreas is almost completely shot. It's about 10% active. So you're also basically a diabetic, which means it screws up circulation, just about everything.
By bleeding?
Yeah. Your red blood cell count is okay in your extremities only. In the rest of your body, the red blood cells don't seem to be able to work properly. It looks like you've got a lot of improperly constructed insulin in your system. A good way to help remove that would be Jerusalem artichokes. Grate them and eat them with a little olive oil and some cheese. And that'll help chelate with them, break them down, and remove them.
Goat, dairy, and cow? Same?
A cow.
Not goat.
No.
Okay.
The reason is goats don't relax. They're not very calm animals. And I found that in a situation like yours, they have a tendency to make people anxious. Not everybody, but why take the chance? If you want to take the chance and experiment and explore, go ahead. But make sure that some objective party is doing the observing. Okay?
Okay.
Because diabetics usually don't have a rationale about what's really happening. Okay? Your liver isn't in great shape, so I suggest that you eat pineapple, also with fats. Mostly red meat, probably 60-70% meat for about 3 years, red meat for about 3 years, and then the rest of it chicken and fish, mainly fish. And then after about 3.5 years, go into a lot of chicken and cut down the beef to maybe 50%. Okay? You need to eat about 5 sprigs of parsley every other day for about 3 weeks at a time, and go into 5-month cycles of eating it. Also eat whole cucumbers. If they're not organic, peel them. A little bit of zucchini is also helpful. No milk early in the day might give you a little bit of CFS, chronic fatigue. It might make you a little difficult in getting your digestion going. So make sure it's after 1 o'clock, and then have your milk then. Stick with juice in the morning, and you can mix your juice and like you could have a few bites of cheese before you have some juice. And the juice I recommend for you is 80% celery, 10% parsley, and 10% carrot juice. Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
I don't know if this is my path.
Okay.
Is it psychic or oriental diagnosis? I don't know.
No, I don't
know. I don't feel comfortable. I do have just 2 questions on your thyroid gland and what's very complicated. I think the veins have some antibiotics.
Yeah. Just let me see your hand. It's not psychic. I see
I'm like
patterns
totally
on that.
I've been to people I don't trust. Healer. I don't know.
Your parathyroid is overactive on the right side and on the left side. Your thyroids look fine.
I'm on thyroid medication. What's thyroid?
Yeah, but I mean, there's no degenerative tissue in there, and they're not inactive.
So what I'm doing, they must not be working if I'm taking thyroid every day.
Well, that means your thyroid will never work if you're taking supplemental.
Right.
Never. Your thyroid just may have gone into a lull, just like the liver does sometimes.
When you mentioned that vitamin E,
yeah.
I used to take 300 IUs of vitamin E.
Wow.
And you said that creates thyroid?
Yeah.
What do you do for the...
So it may be toxic, but they're not deatrophying.
Okay. But the spider veins, varicose veins, can you do anything about that? Because I've been taking tons of vitamin C and...
Vitamin C is the worst thing you can do for it. Vitamin C robs the blood of fat.
And calcium?
And calcium. If it robs the fat, it's going to rob the calcium. It's going to rob all the minerals. It's going to degenerate your tissue. Vitamin C is one of the worst things you can do, psychologically, emotionally, physically. Unless you're a fat person. And you are not a fat person. Yeah. None. Yeah. So vitamin C is the worst thing you can be taking. If you want to kick your thyroid in, go get thyroid tissue. I've had a thyroid a thyroid problem since I was a child. I go to a buffalo ranch or somewhere and get a thyroid of a calf or something, and I will take the thyroid and cut it up into 3 parts. And I'll blend it with milk, and it tastes like clam chowder. Put a little red onion in and blend it together so it's like clam chowder. I only have to eat that once every 1.5 years to once every 2 years, and it takes care of me for that whole time. My clients that way too.
Okay.
Only takes eating 1 whole thyroid once every year to year and 2 years.
The calf thyroid?
Calf. A calf or a buffalo calf, yeah.
What do you do for the spider veins? Because they're breaking continuously. I take the vitamin C, makes it slow down. Because when I go off it, more break. But it's from a side effect of all the drugs.
Right.
When I have one, I was 19, and that's all they said. It was like from the sulfur and the type of like that. But how do you reverse it? Or stop the process?
Well, what happens is it creates mutant yeasts and molds, antibiotics, and they normally go into the bone. But if the bone is not strong, then it could go into the veins too, and that can create it. So they're constantly, just molding, deteriorating, they break. The best way to get rid of that is to eat lots of fat with meat. Lots of chicken.
Wow.
Yep. The glands usually, I found that the glands regenerate quickest with red meat. The skin, the tissues throughout the entire body mainly regenerate with fowl best. Chicken, turkey.
What regenerate with that?
The tissues throughout the system except for dark glandular tissue. And the blood is very important with red meat in most people, and some people not. But the white meat is the best thing you can do, white meat and fat.
What about fish? What is that special for?
It's white. Well, fish I found is great for the nervous system. It mainly rebuilds the constituents, not the myelin. The myelin is about 80 to 90% fat. So the fish fat can, aid to the myelin, but the actual epidermis of, all tissues is helped by chicken the best.
By the way, have you had anything happen with ALS? Has anyone ever come to you with that?
Yeah. It's in my book, too. Yeah. Okay.
Can I say one thing? When you eat the chicken, or any of this raw stuff, do you have to marinate it, or you just buy it, wash it, and then just dig in with your knife and fork?
Whatever recipe you can come up with, you can do it. You can put lemon on it, you can put lime on it, you can do what the Tahitians do. When I was on the island of Moorea, which is right next to Tahiti, they had a recipe. They take coconut meat, they wring the fat out of it, they mix lime and coconut cream and diced tomatoes, and they fold it all together with either chopped meat or chopped chicken or chopped fish. It is so delicious. It is incredible. My girlfriend said, she was a neighbor, she bought my book, and she said, she had chronic fatigues, and she was, 20 years old, and all kinds of problems. She got on a diet, doing better. She said, but one thing I will never do is eat the chicken. I can't eat raw chicken. So I invited her over for lunch the next day and fed her that meal. She says, this is so good. What is it? And I said, I'm not telling you until you finish. And she's been eating raw chicken almost every day since.
So you can just have raw without doing other stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. I mostly eat it.
To avoid parasite. Like the Japanese, they marinate it to avoid tapeworms or something. You don't believe in that?
No. But, if you want to do that, they do it because it digests faster, not because they're trying to get rid of the worms.
So you don't get tapeworms or parasites from raw?
No. Tapeworms live in individuals who mainly eat grains only. Third world countries, and they're not fed any proteins. Parasites are there feeding on all of that carbohydrate, that advanced glycation end products that would melt their body. If they didn't have those tapeworms in there, they would be in real worse shape than they already are. Okay. Dan? Hi. Relax your hands. Okay, your glands are overactive also, your sex glands. Your thyroid gland is normal. Your pancreas is almost inactive. So stay away from fruit and carbohydrates, even carrot juice, unless it's in very small amounts. Lots of red meat, about 70% red meat, 30% white. Fish, chicken, evenly. You could lean more on the chicken if you want. The chicken really makes the skin wonderful. You have some really severe intestinal problem.
I thought I had a seizure 5 weeks ago.
It's still leaking. It's still bleeding.
No.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe so.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
you need to get cabbage, juice it, drink a cup of cabbage juice a day, 4 ounces at a time, break it up. Be sure and put it in 4-ounce jelly jars when you juice it. Cap it, put it in. There's really 5 ounces that fit in it. So you can put a little unheated honey in it if you want, and that way it'll preserve and won't oxidize. You need 8 ounces of that a day to help stop that, because you have leaking in your gut, and that could cause peritonitis and all kinds of serious problems. Lots of chicken. You need lots of chicken, but you also need the red meat. You really need to stay away from fruit. You could have carrot juice as long as it's, no more than 2 ounces at a time, with cheese or raw cream or avocado, something like that. You have great recuperative ability once you get the raw meats into your system. Okay, that'll heal very quickly. You just need to stop the bleeding. Okay, and the green cabbage, not red cabbage, green cabbage. Okay, and you need to be creative. Okay, do something more creative as an artist or something like that for your own relaxation. It looks like your whole stomach came about because of tension. Okay, and you're burning up your B vitamins and proteins in that. You're not eating enough to supplement it. Lots of meat, you'll feel more relaxed and better and do something creative. Okay, and you can drink lots of milk too.
This is David's reading.
You're welcome. Hi. Wow, really overactive sex glands and adrenals. The right side of the pancreas is starting to debilitate. It's edemic and swollen. The left side is mostly degenerative. Your glands are very active. All of your glands are active except for the pancreas, overactive. Red blood cell count is okay. Not great, but it's okay. I would say 60% red meat and 40% white, mainly chicken, some fish, about 10% fish. So that means 30% chicken. Your body looks like it's storing its dead cells in the skin, which is a good place for it. It won't cause much damage, in the skin. I suggest that you have a half to a whole cup of olive oil a week with either chicken or fish. You could have a half a cup with chicken and half a cup with beef.
Okay.
And help break some of that storage in the tissue down, in the skin down. Pineapple also, you could use one pineapple about every 10 days.
A whole pineapple?
Yeah, but every 10 days go through one whole pineapple.
But
don't eat it all at one time. About a half-inch circular slice every day.
Yeah.
So you can cut it circularly, flatten it on put it flat on a plate like that, and it'll seal itself. So you can keep it for quite a while. You can put it in the refrigerator too if you like, on the plate. You have a little bit of a mineral problem, so I suggest eating lots of raw and salted cheeses with equal amounts of raw and salted butter. You should try to work up to 2 pounds of meat a day, because you're just not regenerating tissue very well. And this will help you regenerate tissue and reverse the aging process.
Will it revive the pancreas too?
It looks like there's something in the left side of the pancreas that's causing a block, and there's some kind of toxicity in there. So I doubt that the left side will, unless that cleans out, but you don't need it. The right side is pretty strong, even though it's a little inflamed and edemic. Just don't eat much fruit. One a day is fine. Okay for you. Okay.
Thank you much.
You're welcome.
This is Elsa's reading.
Hi. Relax your hands. Your whole uterine area is drying up. You're not breaking down fats properly to lubricate yourself properly in that area. Everywhere else you seem to be fine. So it tells me is that you're storing salts or some kind of chemical down there. You taking any medication that might be causing that?
Thyroid.
Yeah?
For thyroid and Zolo for depression.
Okay, the Zolo would be causing that. Lots of raw meats will help reverse that.
What do you recommend for lesions? Like I've had a few deep blisters and just like mild acne. Do you say that's for hormonal, or is that?
That is usually toxicity coming out of the tissues, like the byproducts of your hormone supplements. Okay, and there's no way you can get around that without eating tons of eggs, lots of raw eggs. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, maybe 6 to 10 a day. Okay. Your sex glands, all of that are just drying out.
Really?
Yeah. From here to here. So eat lots of, eggs and raw fats. And your meat, of course. You will find that most depression, anywhere from 80 to 90% of your depression will go away as long as you're eating meat.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that for everybody?
Pardon?
Is that for everybody?
Well,
For her.
most people. That's for most people. Yeah. Most depression will go away with eating the meat. Yeah. There are some cases with chronic fatigue, it doesn't work as high as that, maybe 60%. Oh, yes. That means that nobody's going to get this recording, the rest of it.
Still recording.
Okay. You need which microphone?
It's got to be locked up
Okay.
for a certain time. Sorry.
That's for the room?
Yes. That's
Okay, I will speak louder, more loudly.
Yeah, he's still recording. But everybody's going to have to leave this side of the building soon.
Okay. It shouldn't take much longer. Which is it you want? Okay. Terrific. All right. All right. Okay.